Gaming news today is all about the aftermath. First, in the wake of the Xbox layoffs, studio closures, and games being canceled, a lot of folks are changing their tune about the company. We're going to look at some of the more surprising reactions as well as new details into just how bad the situation is. Second, in the wake of Helldivers 2 coming to Xbox, that has prompted a flurry of responses. Now, I have my own video up right now, so make sure you check that out and watch that, where I basically say Xbox is not a threat. Now, a lot of this has to do with my own theory being debunked. I thought maybe this was something primarily initiated by Arrowhead, but it turns out that is not the case. So make sure and watch that video. It kind of walks through where this originated from. And also, I kind of entertain the notion, like, will the game be successful on Xbox or not? I kind of look at it from both sides. And as always, I do have a game for your wish list and your radar. Now, if you're watching this later, make sure you have your subscribe button hit. Make sure you have the bell button checked. If you're watching on purple, make sure you have the following thing done and check your primes every month. That's a great way to support what we do. We are basically almost entirely fan-funded here. I know there's a lot of podcasts on Patreon, that's how they exist. Well, we exist in this space largely in the same way. So consider clicking join. Make sure you pick Member Plus. $6 a month supports the channel directly, and you do get into extra content. Purple, same deal. Consider subscribing or using your Prime. All those things help us out. So let's just kind of talk about the aftermath here first. So the Xbox saga continues with the layoffs, the studio closures, and even these game cancellations, sort of settling on the watching gaming community and industry. And the dust settling there is unearthing some pretty troubling things. And I do think some things are worth mentioning more than others. We did see the founder of Arcane Studios labeling Game Pass as unsustainable and damaging, and the publishing director of Larian, that's the studio behind Game of the Year winner Baldur's Gate 3, well, the publishing director of Larian agreed, and arguing that the infinite money thing just doesn't make sense. Even former head of PlayStation, Sean Layden, jumped in on the Twitter thread and said that this was the sad truth. Now, that was a common criticism of Xbox and Game Pass, being that it was being primarily subsidized by a giant parent company with deep pockets and wasn't actually a solvent business strategy. But other responses were even more sharp. Windows Central Jez Corden wrote that, quote, under Satya Nadella and Amy Hood, Microsoft has become a glorified investment bank bereft of delivering innovation. Now, another Windows Central contributor posted Jez's article on Twitter and said the following: under CEO Satya Nadella and CFO Amy Hood, being a fan of Microsoft is becoming impossible. The company feels directionless, changing strategies on a dime and laying off thousands in its fickle wake. Now, Jez went on to say in his article that he and others feel Amy Hood is the problem. He said this: sources who remain anonymous due to lack of authority to speak on internal matters have pointed the blame for yesterday's mammoth layoffs firmly at Microsoft CFO Amy Hood. Hood's unrealistic fiscal expectations on Microsoft's subsequent divisions have created a culture of fear and doubt, ironically impacting productivity and thus profitability. Now, if you couple all of this with the growing sense that these layoffs and studio closures actually came, came from nothing to do with Xbox, it was primarily to help shoulder the rising costs of Microsoft's AI investments, many fans are calling foul, especially considering you spent $80 billion to buy all these studios, and now the biggest contribution you're doing from it is you're shrinking the market and we're getting less games accordingly. SkillUp, YouTuber that I respect, he straight up called for new leadership in his 20-minute breakdown of the situation, with many other YouTubers heavily criticizing Xbox and Microsoft. I mean, I'm seeing rants from everybody. There was the guy from Kinda Funny Mike. He was just ranting for 20 minutes about it. There are people that are pretty upset with what happened here because this seems to be the opposite result of what many of them were hoping for. Now, we also saw sort of a stunning report. PC Gamer kind of broke this. I believe it was PC Gamer that broke this. If not, if it was somebody else, be sure to give them credit in the comments below. But they said the following: Romero Games reportedly met with Microsoft just a day before the publisher pulled their funding of the studio. Essentially, the studio is no more because of that. And there was no mention of the decision to put those people out of work. In fact, they were given the impression oh, hey, the game's progressing very well. So can the Xbox brand survive such a huge turn from the public? I mean, basically, the brand already has gone through an evolution that has upset the most loyal fans with respect to how exclusives are being treated. But when you see these studios and the games treated in this way, it's difficult for anybody to really say this is a good impact on gaming or this is good for the industry as a whole. Essentially, a lot of people are experiencing buyer's remorse. They thought that the acquisition was going to turn into some big crown jewel moment for Xbox, and all it's really turned into is market shrink. Like, they're shrinking the amount of games and studios in the market. And many people are very quick to dismiss all this and say, well, the games were taking too long to come out and the games were bad, right? I was watching an Asmongold video this morning, and that was essentially his take, was that if the studios aren't producing and they're doing a bad job, you shut them down. I think there's a larger issue at play here. I think that's an oversimplification. I do think there are times where studios need to either be restructured or reallocated or shrunk because they're just not producing, they're not doing a good job. But when this many studios are having this consistent problem, you have to start to look at the ownership and what that's doing to these companies. That's why I always go back to the autopsy on 343 and I say this is a shared problem with all these developers underneath Microsoft's ownership. So let me know where you stand on the brand, on the future of Xbox. You can leave a comment below if you're watching this later, or if you're in the live audience, we'll discuss it in a moment. So another thing related to the aftermath and a lot of strong responses is Helldivers coming to Xbox. And my theory about this was wrong, okay? I thought Arrowhead's the one that initiated this. They really wanted this to take place. Now, that's still true. They really did want this to happen. So there's still a potential that they played a role here, okay? But according to sources familiar with what happened, this was something initiated by Xbox, which means it was not initiated by PlayStation. That also means that Xbox had to say something to convince them, and I covered that in my latest video. So again, check out my latest upload where I talk about how Xbox is not a threat, because it does remain a mystery to, like, okay, what exactly did Xbox say to convince them? But the source is basically claiming that this was something Xbox was interested in, and they must have brought something to the table, which the theory is, from this individual as well as myself, that Xbox was like, listen, we are not even remotely in competition with you anymore. Our future devices are going to be Windows devices. We are not in traditional console market anymore. In about 5 years, that'll probably be the reality that we see. And then that makes this a non-issue, because you're already putting games on Steam and all these future Windows devices, whether it's the Asus ROG Ally X that's coming later this year, or any of the other host of devices that come out of this new strategy from Xbox, they will be Windows devices. And Sarah Bond has said that's their goal, is for Windows to be the largest gaming platform. Well, that would mean this is sort of a one-off issue. There won't be Xbox ports in the future because there won't really be an Xbox platform. There will be Windows gaming devices that have the ability to just install Steam games. Now, this does grate against something that I had always said. I thought, well, PlayStation's going to have an issue with that. Well, apparently they don't. If they're going to bring their live service crown jewel to Xbox, I mean, they've had a not great launch of live service endeavors, okay? They have not had the greatest of times with this. Canceling games internally, having the situation with Concord happen. They're not publishing or really in charge of Marathon, but Bungie's underneath their ownership, and Marathon looks to be an utter disaster. We're hearing that Fair Games is also probably not headed for greatness. I would just cancel it if I was in charge. But this is the one live service game as of late that has done so well for them, and they're bringing it to Xbox. Well, again, there must have been something compelling from the Xbox side of the discussion to convince them to do that. And as I cited in the video, Detective Seeds has seemingly a contact at Nixxes. He previously got The Last of Us and the God of War ports, and the timing of that all correct. He had those timelines. So he does seem to have reliable info when it comes to this, and he said that the company's like, no, we're not doing anything right now beyond this. We're working on PC and other support issues with existing ports. So, again, if you disagree with me, I'm happy to discuss it in live. I don't see this as being a major issue. There was even a YouTuber who reached out to Sony. Sony replied and said that their current strategy is to evaluate live service games that expand audience reach and offer crossplay, and they were carefully reviewing each of their live service titles on a case-by-case basis. We know there's license deals with MLB, which is why it lands on Xbox. I don't think Gran Turismo 7 will make the leap. And I think Helldivers will probably be the one, because we are going to enter a time, at least in my estimation, where it will be the PlayStation 6, the Nintendo Switch 2, and then there's just going to be a bunch of Microsoft, sort of like Windows gaming devices that are not seen as a direct threat to the Switch 2 or to the PlayStation, because they're sort of targeting a very different demographic. They're sort of targeting something that is more sort of robust as a gaming device, which I don't think will sell all that well, but I think it'll be good for those who see the value of it. Like if you basically want a PC in your living room, it sounds like Xbox is going to make that a whole lot easier in the future. So again, you can let me know in the comments below what you think, or we can discuss it in the live stream. And I always try to give you guys a game for your wish list and your radar, and this one's right around the corner, and you might not know this about it, okay? Donkey Kong Bonanza is not just launching in about 10 days here in July, but it does have co-op, and I did not know that until very recently. But it's not co-op in the way that you might expect. You're not going to be like running around with Diddy and Donkey together. If you're like me, you may remember how fun co-op play was in Mario Galaxy, even if it was not the traditional approach. One player controls Donkey Kong, and the other will be controlling Pauline. And Pauline just sort of rides on DK's back and will have a cursor on the screen, which is basically the same way that the second player could join a co-op session of Mario Galaxy. Now, with her cursor, she'll be able to do things called vocal blasts. It will, like, damage the terrain. It'll damage the enemies. She can also copy material that will then give her blasts an increase in damage. Okay, so she's going to be along for the ride, which is a more companion-style co-op feature. This was seen in Mario Galaxy. This was seen in Child of Light. If you like that kind of co-op, then be sure to check out Donkey Kong Bonanza when it drops on July 17th for the Switch 2 this month. And so that's it. That's the show open. That's what's going on. I want to know what you guys think about this. And again, make sure you check out my latest upload. We're trying a new format with like slightly longer format uploads, and then we come over to the live stream to discuss them. So the latest upload is running right now. It is called Xbox is Not a Threat, basically. I'm looking at the Helldivers situation, and that's essentially my conclusion. Let me go ahead and get my combined chat. I forgot to open the combined chat app. You guys over there on Purple, if you haven't had a chance to watch it yet, I'll give you guys the link. It's a little bit more likely that the guys on YouTube have watched it. And then I've got some people to thank who are already supporting the channel, so I will thank you guys in just a brief moment. Things slowed down last week, and then you guys went crazy, and you secured yourselves a Saturday stream. So Madam had to play Death Stranding. It was a little bit on the shorter side because it was a Saturday night, so I wasn't trying to stream super late. We wanted to continue to kind of have a normal evening for ourselves. So Han shot first, and so did you. A 10 bomb came in from Shiva Jones, and let me get us started here in our little member battle between the platforms. And hang on, we're going to do a 10 there and a 0. Purple, you're going to be represented here in just a minute, though. Don't worry, I will get you guys tallied up here, because Purple has already had 3 people resubscribe. G on 407, thank you so much for resubscribing to the channel for 6 months, and then 3 months from Wolf Saints, and then Garrett with 4 months as well. So there we go, Purple joining the fray. And then James Wolfgang resubscribing over here on YouTube with 38 months and a member plus. Thank you so much. And Mark with 15 months. Is Nixus done using their Xbox dev kits? Will they just put them on the shelves to collect dust? Thank you so much. I'm not actually sure how that works, and I don't necessarily know if that would be a factor in the decision-making here. You know, hey, send us some dev kits, they use them, and then I don't know if that creates like an ongoing impetus to keep using them. By the way, Mark M., if you are paying for your own membership, be sure to upgrade to Member Plus so that way you can count in the total every single month. Let me go here and make this a 13, but then it needs to become a 16 because I got James. I got Ala Park at 35 months VIP. Keep being dope. Hard to believe I've been on for 3 years. Yeah, you're almost 3 years subs. That's crazy. Thanks for getting me through the crazy work schedule the last few months. And then John Always with 46 months as well. That's a long time. And Raijin hits 22 months over there on Purple. So we're already almost to that first 25 of the week. Remember, every 25 and I gift 5 to you guys. So that's 10. We're at 13. We're at 13-4. So yeah, Purple, you're still in the fight. You're not out of this. PlayStation Soul Slate's coming to Xbox. Console war's over. I really don't think that's the case. I think the future Xbox is going to be a Windows gaming device, and you're just going to play PlayStation ports in Steam. Like, I don't think this idea that, like, oh, the whole slate's coming there doesn't seem to be any movement in that direction. If you were getting ready to move the entire slate to Xbox, there would be a very, very big indication of this. You would see restructuring of studios to either assist with ports. You'd see Nixxes working on more ports. There's an awful lot of games to bring over. I think that's just that doesn't feel driven by good faith. That just feels like somebody trying to get a little jab in, because that's essentially what happened with Xbox. And the whole slate was like something people kept saying. 8-Bit Dad, thank you so much for 33 months over here on Purple. I greatly appreciate it. Keeping the member count strong on both sides, as we're coming out of that. We're coming out of that post-showcase slump, and the games are about to start dropping. There's going to be a lot of games to play and a lot of games to talk about in the coming weeks. Given how poorly Final Fantasy 16 sold, I highly doubt PlayStation sees incentive to move games like Ghost of Tsushima or God of War. Yeah, the big tentpole titles are just, they're clearly treated differently and viewed differently by PlayStation. I would not see them wanting to bring those over. It would be pretty damaging to the brand. And again, it does not seem as though there has been any shift in the strategy. When you examine the reality that this was initiated by Xbox, that's, I think, a completely different equation. If this would have been initiated by PlayStation, then we would be having a very different discussion. I would be like, well, then one of two things is true. PlayStation's changing their live service strategy. Maybe they're changing their publishing strategy. We've seen no evidence of this. They haven't said anything like this to the shareholders. They haven't signaled any of this with their business structure. It's pretty obvious when companies like this are going to make changes, because they would make budgetary alignments that would reflect what's coming in the next couple of years. Like, think about it right now. There are games in development. What's good, Feed? I see you in the chat. There are games in development right now underneath PlayStation's ownership that you would need to be restructuring their development if you were going towards this third-party whole slate strategy that people are claiming is happening. You'd have ample evidence that this shift was taking place, because there are tons of games in development right now. And we have a hype train starting over here on Purple. If you guys want to cash in, rally your forces and let me know, because I can give you guys those discounts, and it helps the hype trains. It helps you guys out, and it helps more subs get in. I watched your last video, and I agree it's not a threat, says Abyss. If Sony was putting all games on Xbox, then why not God of War? Why not Horizon? Sony did this because Helldivers 2 is a live service game. What's good, Silent Service? Yeah, I mean, there's a very different approach, I think, to live service games in general. I remember when Helldivers 2 first came out, I was like, yeah, I'd be fine if it came to Xbox. And then we got some gifteds coming in, and Kardoc Ren drops a 5-bomb, and we are dangerously close to the first milestone, and that's an easy steal. We are only 2 away, and Kardoc Ren rolls the hype train over. Thank you so much, Kardoc Ren. Guys, if you are in a position to renew, do a prime, or to gift over here on Purple, now's the time to do it, and you can pull ahead and make things difficult on the boys over there on YouTube. Let's just read some of the comments on my video about that, by the way. Helldivers Xbox isn't a threat. JC says a lot of PlayStation fans are freaking out. I really don't think it's that big of a deal. I also don't think we're going to see PlayStation bringing over their big AAA titles either. I agree. While I understand people's concern, I think people being concerned is completely fine. And Alex is going to come in and secure it very easily for Team Purple, and he skyrockets us to 33. That is a 10-bomb from Mr. Alex. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. They are now in the lead, YouTube. You're going to let Purple start the day with a hype train at level 5. Thank you so much, Alex. Eugene says, I don't like it. Not going to throw a fit over it, but it's not something I'm going to be supportive of. The theory that, so the person I spoke to about this, their theory about this was this has more to do with a refugee strategy. Thank you, Hound, for 4 months, by the way, renewing over here on Purple, taking us a little bit higher to 34. I appreciate it. It's now 21 to 13. And I owe Purple 5. I'm going to do it now. I don't know if I can help with the hype trains or not, but I'm going to do it now just in case I can. And Predator hits 14 months as well. Welcome back, Predator. I appreciate that so much. Taking Purple's lead up to 2. There it is. And now we're at 35. We are 15 away from the next milestone of 50. Every 25, I gift 5 to you guys. Refugee strap. Right, so Evidence, the idea is that Xbox made a compelling case that we are not a threat to you. We are completely changing our strategy. This would create the notion that there will be an increase of exodus from Xbox. Essentially the idea that there's already exodus from that platform. If you look at Reddit, social media, if you just look at the overall vibe, then you look at the layoffs, then you look at like the structure of hardware and the assurances they're making. The idea being like there's going to be a bunch of refugees. There's going to be a bunch of people that don't have a console home. We can be their console home. If they are like, oh man, PlayStation brought over that Helldivers game and that was really fun. Imagine if Helldivers 3 is a launch title for the PlayStation 6. You'd have an awful lot of people that would be like, you know what? Xbox's new console's not really a console. It's more of a PC. And if you're more of a console person and you're not really interested in the Steam integration, it might be more compelling to see a PlayStation 6 with a Helldivers 3. Again, this is speculation and theory. Nobody knows anything. It's just that Furious Impulse, thank you for 3 months. Let's build the lead. Also, Helldivers is not a big deal. They need players. And that takes you guys to 23. The member count's going to jump to 36, but then 37. Thank you, Joker Quinn, for the single gifted over here on YouTube. I appreciate it so much. 14 to 23. A 10 bomb would give you guys the lead. YouTube. When the PlayStation 5 Pro updates roll out, there will be another sale on the device about that same time. This is going to be used to entice PS4 owners to finally upgrade. Oh, this is what Detective Seeds is reporting. Also, GTA 6 will help. I think there are going to be a lot of console players, a lot of long-standing console players on Xbox who are saying, listen, it's time for me to plant my flag somewhere else. I mean, the guy on Kinda Funny said it. He said he's already envisioning essentially shifting to PlayStation. He's already thinking about it. I think that's going to be a continued shared vision and thought from players who aren't compelled by a Windows gaming device. The more people realize the truth about the Asus ROG Ally X and Xbox's future hardware endeavors, you're going to have people that are like, yeah, that's not for me. Now, there are going to be people that love the idea. Thank you, Harbinger, for gifting a member, getting us to 38. There are going to be people that love the idea of a box in their living room that basically makes it easier for them to have 2 libraries. Their backwards compat, their Xbox library. They're going to have here. Let me turn off sub-only mode. Sorry. They're going to have their Steam library. I mean, I just saw a really, really great update and announcement about Deep Rock Galactic Survivor entering 1.0. And the first thing I thought was, oh man, if that thing ever ends up with like co-op on it, it'll be great to have that future Xbox in my living room that we're hearing is, you know, there's this speculation it's going to be some kind of a hybrid, right? Well, that's great for me, but you got to think about people that are diehard in the realm of console. If they're diehard, you know, embargo will lift on the 23rd. Okay. 24 hours before the release. Okay. Sorry, my old eyes can't do this anymore. Okay. We got access to a game. We'll do what we can to make content for you guys with it. That's been something that we've been pretty big on. Been with Xbox since the OG. Pretty convinced at this point that my next console will be the PlayStation 6. Right, so read what Nova Hands is saying. Since I don't care about Game Pass, Xbox is not offering me enough to choose them anymore. I'm not their target consumer anymore. So I want you to think about what they potentially gain here. Yeah, my arms are not long enough to hold the phone. I just lift my glasses. So you got to think about what they end up. Yo, what's good, Incog86? How are you? What they end up benefiting from here if they even get like a fraction of players to come over. The cost to port Helldivers 2 over was probably minimal given that they had Nixxes do it. They already own Nixxes. This is Nixxes' job. right? Pac-Man on a Bike leaves a comment about this. He says, agree, this is more about Xbox changing, not PlayStation. Exactly this. I tried to drive that home in the video. This is less about PlayStation changing. This is more about Xbox changing. If Xbox convinces PlayStation, you can bring this game over here, we are not a threat even in the least bit of the word, then PlayStation can only benefit from that, because you're basically taking something over there as a nice commercial for, hey, we make good games, we got good stuff, you should come over to our side, because you're going to have people that switch. They employed this strategy on PC with their big tentpole titles. And this gen, they've had like record new user acquisition. Now, the new user acquisition is likely coming from multiple places. I think there are people already this gen who have left Xbox and are going to PlayStation. I also think there are people on PC who are not leaving PC, but they're adding PlayStation to their gaming experience because they're like, listen, these games are good and they run well on a PS5. Like, it's not like they run poorly. Getting a 60 FPS mode on your PS5 for a game like Ragnarok, I don't think the average person, again, we're talking about like the average person, if you're on like a mid-level PC and down, you're not going to find that performance mode to be lacking. You're not going to be like, well, oh my gosh, this is so terrible. Now, high-end PC users are going to probably turn their nose up to it, but based on hardware reports, they're not the majority. They're not the majority of the user base. They make up a good chunk, but they're not the majority. Even if it was split down the middle 50-50, and like half of the PC user base was a high-end PC user and the other half were not, that half is still very big. That half is enormous. So if you can market to that half of the Steam user base, and now you can also market to people who are going to be considering shifting their not allegiance, but just their console experience to another console, I think PlayStation's in a good position, especially considering PlayStation's not increasing the price of their hardware. PlayStation's not increasing the price of their games. They've allowed Xbox to charge out ahead and do that first. So you're going to go into the second half of 2025, and you're going to have an awful lot of Xbox guys saying, Xbox is raising their prices, they're sending their games to PlayStation, I don't know if I want to stay here anymore. Now, they might say, oh, well, if PlayStation brought over Helldivers 2, maybe I'll wait. Maybe I'll start to get other games. Which is exactly why I don't think PlayStation would do that. I think they would send over Helldivers 2 as like an audition to be like, number one, it's a live service game. It can benefit from a larger funnel. And number two, we can convince some of those people maybe to come over. AOZ leaves a comment on the video. If you guys haven't watched the latest video yet, you guys on Purple especially may have missed it. I will put a link in chat. Be sure to check it out. If you guys on the old YouTube want a link, I'll give you guys a link as well. It is basically a video where I argue that Xbox is not a threat. This is more to do with PlayStation, capitalizing on changes at Xbox than PlayStation changing. This is more about Xbox changing. Xbox has changed so fundamentally that now you're seeing something happen that nobody ever thought was going to happen. Yeah, Death Stranding 2 is not a Sony IP, if somebody's saying that. Death Stranding is an IP that is owned by Kojima Productions. PlayStation's just publishing, likely going to have like a year or more of exclusivity before it hits PC, and then probably Xbox after that. Same way they did Death Stranding 1. I would imagine they're going to do it the same way they did Death Stranding 1. AOZ says, a great benefit that comes with Helldivers on Xbox console, more players that are not cheating. Console ecosystems provide control game releases. Any hardcore Helldiver knows the woes of the guy that comes in and trivializes the game with cheats. So annoying. I didn't know Helldivers 2 cheats was a thing. I didn't even know that was like a thing. There are people that cheating in Helldivers 2. Harbinger left a comment and says, one thing is very clear. We are in the middle of the tides changing, indeed. A joke that's all says, it was obvious that Xbox wasn't a threat, but at the same time I wouldn't use the word threat heavily or at all. Xbox or Microsoft was already in the change for their games ever since it was rumored that they were going to be going, like Starfield hitting PlayStation at some point, or Nintendo. Said that they said that PlayStation and Nintendo wasn't competition. So it was already given signs that they wanted to for a while now. But I think the question should be, since Xbox is headed onto a different direction, will Sony be a lot more open about games coming to Xbox? I think future Xbox devices are just Windows gaming machines and Steam is there. I just think that's it. I just think I thought that PlayStation would have an issue with it. It seems I was totally wrong. And I always said that I could be wrong. And I always said, if PlayStation decides this is not a big deal, it's not the win that you think it is, because what it means is that PlayStation has determined that Xbox is no longer a threat. I always said that. I was like, listen, I think that PlayStation would have an issue with their games booting up on some Xbox hybrid device. It seems that I was incorrect, and they don't care. And I think Helldivers is the indication of that. It's like, we don't care. Our future games are going to be accessible on these devices. There's not going to be a traditional Xbox console in the market, so this doesn't do anything to us. In 5 years, everyone's going to think very differently about what an Xbox is. It's not going to be viewed as this console that's in the market as an alternative to Nintendo and PlayStation. It's going to be this sort of cascade of devices. There'll be handhelds made by Asus. There'll be potentially other handhelds or boxes or all sorts of different things made by other companies. That seems to be where they're headed. And again, that's not a bad thing, but I think that's more of a diagnosis of what's happening than like the sky is falling, I'm going to get rid of my PlayStation. You know, I think those responses, like, listen, I understand. If you really feel this is a breach of trust and you feel like you got to bounce, then you do what you got to do. But I just don't see it. It's not going to take 5 years. They're doing that now. What I mean, Trey Gaming, is we got to get on the other side of when, like, the Series S and the Series X are really even being supported. I would say by around 2030, you will see the diminishment of the traditional consoles really getting support. And you will see Xbox more in this position of ecosystem, Windows gaming devices, and then you're just going to be able to boot up PlayStation ports on Steam. Yeah, I think I think my position on that has completely shifted, and this changed my mind. It's like, I think that PlayStation looks at them as a non-threat. They're like, we that doesn't bother us at all. You're just another additive market for us to put our property. If somebody's playing a PlayStation game on an Xbox handheld, that's somebody who might buy a PlayStation in the future. If somebody's playing a PlayStation game on this Xbox console hybrid, they might buy a PlayStation 6 or a PlayStation 6 Pro in the future because they're going to want to get maybe increased power, or they're going to want to play the latest sequel. Like, imagine somebody playing Yote in 2030 on this console Xbox hybrid thing, okay? Imagine that they do that. Well, imagine Ghost of Tsushima 3 being like a PS6 Pro debut title to show it off. Well, that might be that right there. You got a bunch of people that might say, I don't know if I want to wait. That third Ghost game looks really good. And, you know, the PlayStation 6 and the Pro are good devices. They've got a lot of great games that I don't want to wait for. You know, any game. Hang on. Okay. Any game that lands on Steam likely has future franchise iterations of it, and then that could then therefore be another person that comes over. If they're always making you wait, I think that's the ticket with the PC strategy that's paid off for them. What if other Sony studios see that Arrowhead applied enough pressure to Sony to publish on Xbox and they try as well? As far as I can tell, Nick, from a person that I trust, this was initiated by Xbox. It was initiated by Xbox, as far as we can tell. This is somebody that I trust. This was not something that, like, Arrowhead applied pressure for. That was my original theory, and I feel like my theory got debunked. I think Xbox came to the table and said, you don't got to worry about bringing a game over to our platform. We're not a threat anymore. Give this man 100 likes. We have 100 likes. Let's go for 200. Yeah. Nice turnout for a Monday, guys. Thanks so much. Right after the holiday weekend, man. Get us to 200 likes. It helps YouTube a lot. Wolfie left a comment here and said the reason that Sony is interested in putting their live service games on as many platforms as possible is the cost. They didn't really understand, like the Xbox franchises do, how expensive it is to run a true live service game. Of course, Sony is now becoming more aware thanks to the purchase of Bungie and the absolute mess that that's turning into. Bungie leadership seems to have sold them a sinking ship. Pre-orders for the next Destiny 2 are down 50%. One of the number one reasons, and that's not 100% Sony's fault. Bungie burns the goodwill of Destiny 2 players like it's an unlimited resource. I think Sony's plan is on the late side. They should have put Helldivers 2 on Xbox from the very beginning. This feels far more about how much Xbox has changed than the cost of live service games. I really don't think this has anything to do with the cost of live service games. They're not like, oh man, we really got to make back some of our money here, because I don't think the Xbox community engaging with Helldivers is going to be earth-shattering. I think that's fair to say. I do. I think it's totally fair to be like, I don't think this is going to be earth-shattering, boys. It just isn't. I think it'll do fine. I don't think it'll do bad. I don't think it's going to burn the building down. I think it'll be fine. OG DSB with 34 months gets us to 39 on the day. A nice strong start to the week. Oops. Hang on a minute. For those of you interested, I did finish and have completed Lying Mouth is a song. It's the sequel to Smiling Face. And you guys can get that this Friday. That'll be one of the stretch goals this week. So, hustle up, boys. Definitely because you say that Xbox, which is in third place, will not dictate anything. Now they're saying put your game here. No, I mean, you're repackaging everything I've said. You're also repackaging what I've said today, which is not surprising given your history here, that you don't engage in good faith and just falsely summarize what I've stated. Nobody dictated anything. I believe Xbox came to the table and made a compelling argument as to why bringing Helldivers 2 to Xbox would not be a threat or a problem to PlayStation strategies. That's not dictating. That's called negotiation. They came to the table and said, we would love Helldivers to be on our platform, and here's why it's not a big deal. You have to see the difference between Xbox saying, hey, let's talk about bringing Helldivers over, and PlayStation initiating it. If PlayStation would have initiated this, it would be an indication that maybe they're changing their live service strategies, right? Like, yeah, we're changing our live service strategies. We're switching things up. Let's go talk to Xbox about bringing our game over there. From what I've been told, that's not what happened. Xbox initiated the discussions, which means this was not something that PlayStation came up with on their own. Like, yeah, we got to really change our strategy here. Let's take one of our best games and take it over to Xbox. PlayStation okayed it. Who cares who initiates it? I mean, to dismiss the nuances of how it took place sounds like you don't want to know the details so that you could maybe run with your own narrative. I think when you actually look at the details, it completely changes the perspective on it. If PlayStation fans are worried, oh my gosh, they're doing the same thing Xbox did. Okay, well, there were so many signs that Xbox was changing, right? I always convo in a good place, ask anyone. Well, you didn't just now, so do better. You argued in bad faith. You falsely summarized past statements that I've made, and you falsely summarized current statements that I made. You're not arguing in good faith right now, so fix the problem. I'm not going to engage with people who falsely summarize my positions. I'm tired of it. Come here in good faith or find somewhere else to hang out. I don't have the patience for folks that do that anymore. If you're not one of those people, then fix it. Think about it. If you're looking at this situation and you see that it's dire, and you're like, oh my gosh, PlayStation's changing their strategy, and it's like, where do you see evidence of that? Did they say anything to the shareholders? Are they restructuring their studios? Are they changing their budgets? Are they hiring people to help with this? No. Oh, and we're hearing from somebody inside Sony that Xbox initiated this conversation. This was not something that PlayStation initiated. That's actually very helpful information in you making a judgment call as a consumer. You see what I'm saying? You're like, what difference does it make if Sony okayed it? Well, the difference is enormous. Imagine two worlds. There's a world where PlayStation says, we're going to start putting our games on Xbox because it's something that we want to do, and they initiate it. That's an entirely different scenario than Xbox saying, hey, we would like Helldivers on our platform, and we're going to convince you why that's okay. something that you have not shown an interest in, something that you have not done, we're going to convince you that you should do it. Those are two entirely different scenarios. It's the difference. Imagine somebody seeing you with a really, really attractive girlfriend, and you tell them that she's the one that pursued you. Doesn't that make you a little more impressive than you pursued her? Oh, well, who cares? Who cares? No. You would see that as a pretty big feather in your cap. You'd be like, yeah, this very attractive woman pursued me and initiated conversation with me. In any other situation, you would see that as a pretty significant difference in how things played out. You wouldn't act like that's just no big deal. You'd be like, well, no, that's a pretty big deal. It completely changes your understanding of how something happened. I don't think it's a small thing. Garrett says, if only. Now, I know that's a sore subject for a lot of you. A lot of you are probably not having very attractive women initiate conversations with you, which is exactly why I use that as a reason, right? I really want you to feel the emotional depth of that, right? But you see what I'm saying? Like, that's a feather in their cap. And also, it's a big, big difference from what people would traditionally expect. They would traditionally expect, like, the guy to be the one pursuing, and now you're calling me ugly. I mean, I didn't call you ugly. You could be a 10 and women don't pursue you because you chew with your mouth open in the lunchroom at work, okay? There's a lot of reasons it might not be happening, okay? The point being, if Xbox pursued this and initiated this, I want you to consider in the timeline when that would have happened. Right? So you're saying I have no game? I mean, why don't you self-reflect on why you don't have a lady instead of coming at me? It sounds like you're really sensitive about this subject. Maybe just do some self-reflection as to why you're on your own, bud. You know what I mean? In any case, you get the point that I'm making. If in the timeline of everything Xbox has been doing, roughly 6 months to maybe a year ago, it was probably after Phil Spencer's remarks, so it was probably, somewhere between 6 and 10 months ago. They compelled PlayStation to greenlight Nixxes porting Helldivers 2 to Xbox. Now, in the grand scheme of things, what do you think was going on, and what do you think they communicated to PlayStation? Huh? What do you think they said? Look at everything we've seen now. Look at what we're looking at. They've canceled their own handheld plans. They decided to have Asus do the handheld for them. They announced a partnership with AMD. They say in that announcement that they are going to be making Windows the biggest gaming platform. Those are all of the things that have transpired. Oh, and also, no more exclusives. So all of those things transpire now that were put into place a while ago. In the midst of all of that, they convinced PlayStation to bring Helldivers 2 to Xbox. I think that's significant. It's like this has more to do with Xbox changing than PlayStation changing. I'm just looking at the cold hard facts. Which company has changed more? Xbox. Which company has signaled more change? Xbox. Which company has signaled almost no change in their strategy for the last 3 to 4 years? Anytime they go to earnings calls, they say the same thing. The live service games will be multi-platform. The big tentpole narrative-driven titles, they go to PC later, hoping to bring people to the platform, hoping to bring people to PlayStation. They haven't changed their verbiage. They haven't changed their wording. They've said the same thing the entire time. If they start to change that, that's when you know things are changing. And I will say it. There'd be no reason for me to not say it at that point. There'd be no reason to be like, no, they didn't say it. It'd be like, no, they said it. They're changing their strategy. It'll be crystal clear when they do. Thank you, Dan Zatasik, for 46 months at Member Plus. I just got here. Why am I out here catching strays? Also, will this allow players to play with Xbox Cloud Gaming? That's the real end game with Microsoft. And that bumps the line to 40. We are officially a 10 bomb away from the next milestone. This is one of the easiest ones to steal because people kind of sit back and they don't do it. So a 10 bomb will get us to 50. I will owe your platform 5 members. So it's between Team YouTube and Team Twitch. Let me read some comments on the video. While I'm doing that, do me a favor and smash the like button on YouTube. Try to get us to 200 likes. Also, when you leave a comment on my latest upload, you may get featured in the live content. It's Chill Will says, it makes sense for a live service game that's near the end of its updates with Super Earth. Another live streamer brought up a good point about Spider-Man. A bleed green guy was like, yup, it's coming. And the live streamer responded with, well, why haven't they done it yet? The game is 7 years old. Why wouldn't they port a game that's just collecting dust? You want as many players as possible for your live service game, and Helldivers is Sony's only new success. Well stated. It's not. GT7's been doing well, and MLB's been doing well. I'm sorry. You're right. It's their newest success. Then Disney license was brought up, and the same live streamer said Sony made their money back, and then some with Spider-Man, but nobody will talk about that. Just the price of licensing. Licensing is probably why we're getting Miles Morales and Venom spin-offs. My thoughts, on the other hand, is I'm not mad at all about Helldivers. They want as many players, especially with a movie in production for Sony's media strategy. If I were to be mad at Nixus porting to Xbox when they could be working on something for like PS5 like Bloodborne and God of War 2018, but after hearing your video, it's a very smart move. Well, and here's the thing. It's not like Nixus can work on a Bloodborne port, and you're talking about a God of War 2018 port. I don't know what you mean, because they already did that. Oh, unless you mean for the PS, you're saying for the PS5. Oh, you don't need to port God of War 2018 to the PS5. They did a 4K checkerboard update with 60 FPS. Now, hang on, Windex. You responded, and I want to give you a chance to respond, because I kind of cuffed you a little bit. Let's see. Didn't you say Xbox doesn't dictate the market? Yes, I did say that, and that was in the context of talking about the erosion of exclusives, and they also about how console markets are stagnant when the Switch 2 and the PlayStation 5 are proving that they are not. So within the context of me saying they don't dictate the market, you have to understand those remarks as being to that. So let's apply that to how you're now using it, okay? You said PlayStation will not do stuff like day and date. Yep. So in that sense, why would they even agree, or Xbox convincing them? It's hard to believe. Okay, again, as I just demonstrated, my remarks about Xbox not dictating anything has nothing to do with the current discussion. So you're completely ripping it from the original statements and what we were talking about and trying to apply it to a negotiation about a live service game that's been out for 18 months. Somehow, Xbox convinced PlayStation to do this. You are right there with the metal detector over the treasure chest, and you won't get out the shovel and dig deeper. Dig deeper. What could Xbox have possibly said to PlayStation to convince them to get Helldivers 2 to come to Xbox? I mean, you're right there. There had to have been some compelling argumentation to make them do this. And if you look at everything that has transpired this year, you have your answer. Xbox literally laid out to PlayStation everything we now know to be true. Their future hardware will be Windows gaming devices. They're not doing exclusives anymore. They're not going to even have a traditional console anymore. They're going to have something else in the market, some other thing. We all know this now. Xbox laid that out to some degree, I would imagine. This is theory, but in my mind, they laid out that to some degree to PlayStation to say, you only benefit by putting Helldivers 2 on Xbox because it'll increase player count. You might get people to spend some money in the game, and that's never a bad thing. They got to buy it. They got to spend money. It's better for your live service game to have more people in the funnel. And PlayStation's probably thinking in the back of their mind, you're going to lose a lot of players with this move. You're going to lose a lot of Xbox loyalists when you make these changes. When you start putting your games on other platforms, when you start abandoning the tenets of a traditional console, you're going to lose console fans, and we will be happy to take them off your hands. And a great way to do that is to do an audition with a game. PlayStation already knows this. PlayStation already knows this to be true because they've tried it on PC, and they have been citing and touting very good new user acquisition this gen. They have. They sit down on their earnings calls and they're like, we're getting great new user acquisition this gen. For a market that's supposed to be stagnant and dying, somehow PlayStation's finding new users, and they haven't even cracked the egg of the Chinese market yet. It's because they're not a competitor anymore, says Gale, and they're just a weird publisher. Sony ain't worried. That's exactly what my video is about. Make sure and check out my video. Xbox is not a threat. That's why Helldivers is coming to Xbox. Xbox basically came to the table and said, we are not a threat to you. This is not what we're doing. We're not trying to take from you. We're not trying to, I mean, Phil basically says in a podcast, we're not in the business of out-consoling Sony and Nintendo. Haven't most of the new PS5 owners been coming from Xbox since the console's bleeding? I would say a lot of the new users are coming from Xbox. I think some of them are also PC users who are adding a PlayStation to their ecosystem of gaming in their home. We have people in this community that did that because they wanted to play God of War Ragnarok. Well, no, that's a good theory, but this idiom will hurt PlayStation and you will see more Sony games come over? I don't think so, and I'll tell you why. There is no Xbox for games to come over to in the future. There's a Windows gaming device. Forbidden West, not Ragnarok, get it right. No, there were people that bought for Ragnarok, Zubair. You're not the only one that did it. You bought for Horizon Forbidden West, but Wheezy and some others bought for Ragnarok. They played 2018 and the Thor scenes and everything else with Ragnarok. They're like, I gotta play that game. Unicorn says this will probably just justify porting in-house first-party games like Yote or Astrobot to Xbox in a few years' time. Almost assuredly never gonna happen. Almost assuredly never gonna happen. And I think part of the reasons it's assuredly never going to happen, there is no Xbox in the future. It's going to be, I'm telling you, it's going to be a Windows gaming device. And you'll be able to play these games on Steam, but there are no future Xbox ports because there is no Xbox to port to. That's what everybody's missing in the equation. And listen. We've been here before. This is not the first time that we've looked at developments in the market and there are people that are saying things that I'm like, yeah, that sounds really unlikely. Like, I don't know. Xbox isn't going to put their games on other platforms. And I was like, I think they're going to. I think they're saying they're going to. The Series S is going to run circles around the PS5. If you're going to these people for a take on this, and they're like, oh, no, yeah, the whole slate's going, remember what they said about the Series S running circles around the PS5. Remember what they said about how Xbox isn't going to bring their games to the other platforms. Xbox isn't going third party. Remember that they completely got all that wrong. And I think they're getting it wrong again. I think if you're trying to claim, oh, the full slate of PlayStation's going, just you wait, there's nothing to wait for because the next Xbox ain't even going to be a traditional Xbox. It's going to be a Windows gaming device. You'll have Steam, and you'll be able to play Steam ports of PlayStation games. And PlayStation views that as non-threatening. If they allow it to happen, they're like, yeah, that's not a problem. That's not a device that we're worried about. It's not in contention with what we do. If you look at Cerny's aspirations with AMD and Project Amethyst, it would make it perfectly clear as to why they're not worried about a hybrid device that's basically like a Windows device you plug into your TV. PlayStation's not concerned about that. Now, maybe they're wrong. Maybe they should be. You're free. You're free to make that argument. If you think that PlayStation's underestimating Windows gaming devices going forward, then make your case. I don't think they are. I think the Xbox brand, as a hardware, a piece of like hardware centric, placement in the industry, I don't think there's a lot of consumer confidence. I don't think there's a lot of consumer love for the Xbox brand anymore, especially with respect to hardware. This gen and last gen have been very damaging to them. So, again, I could be wrong. Windows gaming devices could absolutely go and explode and be incredible. And the handhelds and whatever this PC console hybrid thing is that we've heard a lot of rumors about, it could completely blow the doors of the industry off. My estimation is that will not happen. I just don't think so. You're free to make your own predictions. My prediction is that these things will not be that impactful. Excuse me. I've given up on them, especially now. I think a lot of people have, understandably. I disagree with you, says Lucas Hobbs. I'm 100% convinced that Microsoft will kill their hardware in the long run and settle for the launcher app. Oh, I mean, that very likely could end up happening, Hobbs, in the even further distant future. In the further distant future, they could certainly be like, yeah, we don't even really do hardware anymore. We're more of an app, and our app shows up in various places. You could be correct. So you're talking about hardware buyers versus gamers. Gamers love having access to more games. I'm not sure what a dividing line you're creating, because if you look at what moves in the market, like with the Switch 2 and the PlayStation 5 respectively, I think you're creating a false dichotomy. I think gamers are driven to buy hardware by the games themselves. They're like, ooh, I want to play Mario Kart or Donkey Kong. Ooh, I want to play God of War or Yote. Like, they're gonna, you see what I'm saying? Like, I don't think there's this dividing line of like, well, gamers love having access to more games. I mean, that's just a platitude. I don't even know what that means. Gamers are typically driven by the games themselves, which you end up seeing the results of that in the form of a hardware purchase, because they're like, well, that's the only place I can go play that. This idea that there's this value structure in the market around, I need to be able to play my games everywhere. I need to be able to play it on my phone and my TV, and that's a big win, and that's what dictates my choices. I don't think we're seeing evidence of that at all in gamers' behavior and their purchases. I think we're seeing gamers behave in the exact opposite of what Xbox has been claiming and what a lot of the talking heads have been claiming about Xbox's strategy. I don't think we're seeing consumer behavior that justifies a lot of these claims. That console market's dying and stagnant. I don't think we're seeing evidence of that. I don't think we're seeing evidence that, like, what really gaming is all about is being able to play my games in more places. I don't think we're seeing evidence of that from gamers in the market. They're typically flocking toward, where do I need to go to play that game? Whether it's, Pokemon, Zelda, or Spider-Man. I think a lot of gamers react to that. I'm not saying all gamers. I'm just saying I'm not seeing the market trend toward what gamers really demand is being able to play games on their iPhones and their TVs. I'm not seeing evidence of that as a high demand from the gaming audience. And here's the other problem with saying that that's what gamers want. And this is where people contradict themselves. And it's really subtle, and if you're not paying attention, you won't catch this contradiction. If the console market is stagnating, and that's why Xbox is doing this, they're going for gaming everywhere. They're going for gaming on your phones and your TVs. Typically, when we talk about that, people talk about how, well, they're targeting people outside of the gaming industry. They're targeting non-gamers with that strategy. Pause. Everybody press pause right now. Then why, if that's the case, why do we invoke being able to play your games in more places as what gaming is all about? Do you catch the very, very subtle and latent contradiction? The strategy is based on, well, consoles are dying, stagnant, and not growing. Being able to play games everywhere, that's what gaming's all about. But when they talk about it, they talk about how, well, gaming on a TV or a tablet or a Fire Stick, it's about going and getting people who aren't gaming right now. What? Wait. If that's what gaming is all about, then why is it not appealing to gamers? It seems like it's appealing to non-gamers. Putting games on a smart TV, a tablet, or an iPhone seems very focused on non-gamers. So how is that what gaming is all about? I don't understand. It's a value point that's designed to speak to people who don't play games. Do you see? It's super subtle. It's like so smoothly baked into the crust there. It's like nobody really picks up on the fact that, like, wait a minute. This entire strategy is based on going and getting more people who aren't presently playing games. So how can this be what gaming is all about? It's not something that is championed by gamers, unless, of course, they're sort of running the marketing talking points for Xbox. The average gamer you talk to, this is not what they care about. They care about the games. My nephews bought a PS5 because they wanted to play Spider-Man 2. They got tired of seeing the commercials. They got tired of not being able to play Spider-Man 2. So one of them had saved up their money and they bought a PS5 because they wanted to play Spider-Man 2. Now, you could have been like, well, but wouldn't they have bought Spider-Man 2 if it was like ported to Xbox? Yeah. But they couldn't. And so it motivated purchase of hardware. The entire point, right? The game itself is what motivated where they went. And that's the generation behind. That's not even my generation. The whole this is an Xbox thing is aimed at 50-year-old Dave who just got off work, not for hardcore gamers. It's the same mistake that Xbox One made, chasing an audience that isn't very strong. Uska, that's so well stated. I said that in another video a while ago. I said they're making the same mistake once again. They're targeting non-gamers. When they did the whole TV thing, that was a corporate head who said, we got to reach beyond the gaming audience. Let's get the people who aren't gaming. Let's get people who just want like a TV or an entertainment box in their home. And it completely sabotaged the entire generation of Xbox when they did that with the Xbox One. And I said the same thing. I was like, they're doing the same thing again. As a company, Microsoft is not satisfied with roughly the same size audience every year. They want that ever-present, ever-growing, upward growth trajectory, and they can't get it. So what are they going to do? They're going to start marketing to people who are outside the gaming industry. And it's like, you're not going to get people to jump into your gaming experiences and your ecosystems and your games by being like, well, you've never really played games before, but now you can do it on your TV or a Fire Stick or a tablet. Just make sure you understand the inner workings of cloud, signing up for a subservice, and going and buying a controller from Target. Then you got to sync with your television. Like, do all the things that a gamer knows how to do, but not a non-gamer. It's why the strategy, I don't think, will lead to a bunch of people converting and being like, well, yeah, I didn't used to play games, but now I do through my smart TV. I don't think you're going to see this land swell of people do that. I could be wrong, but that's been my prediction, that I don't think that this is an Xbox is going to see huge ROI of people converting into playing that didn't previously play. At one level, it might be more about, like when your cable company tries to get you to sign up for phone or TV and internet, like they want you to get all the services. It could be just that. They're trying to maintain the people that they've got, and they don't want to lose them because there is such a good amount of people on Game Pass, like 20 to 30 million people somewhere in that hemisphere, 30-something million on Game Pass, and they don't want to lose those people. So they just keep creating these access points so you feel like you can't get away. More comments in the videos. My video from today. My guess, Sony wants to make more money. People who are throwing a tantrum over this news should go outside and touch grass. Alex Gaming left a comment on the video and said, according to Xbox fanboys, porting games to PS5 is a win for them. Supporting Helldivers 2 to Xbox is a win for PlayStation. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the qualifiers here. I mean, this guy says, Reforge, thanks for clarifying everything. I was worried for a sec that PlayStation was going to go multi-platform like Xbox. I see no signs of that right now, but anything can change. I mean, anything can change, but I see no signs of that right now. I see no signs of going toward the third-party strategy that we saw, Microsoft employ with Xbox. PlayStation already has multi-platform since it's on PC too. This is true, and I think the strategy shift with PC was well explained. Like, I don't think... So every strategy is different, and I think that's what a lot of people don't understand. So, like, a lot of the times where you'll have one company say, well, we're doing this, and another company does something similar, they're not always exactly the same purposes behind them. So let's say one company, let's say you have two lawn mowing companies. And one of them starts offering a subservice where you can subscribe and they're going to do all these things for you every month instead of having to pay like a flat fee every time or whatever. And their reason for doing that is they're going for as many people as they possibly can get because they plan to make more margins that way. They'll be able to basically get more customers. Okay, so let's say this other lawn mowing company does a similar thing. They do a subservice, but they structure it differently. They don't include some of their premier treatment and spraying and different things like that. So they're both doing the same thing, but they have completely different aims. I think you've seen that quite evident in the way that both Microsoft and PlayStation have treated the PC console. I'm sorry, not the console. The PC platform with their console games. They are both treating that platform completely differently. Xbox was like doing day and date and was like, we're not going to do all the games, and then eventually they were doing all the games day and date. PlayStation has spoken very specifically to the fact that they stagger those games, intentionally stagger those games, in the hopes that people come to PlayStation for the sequel. And then they have a very intentional strategy with live service games on PC. So this is why I always feel like if you're just going to reduce it down to like silly platitudes about like, yep, they're doing the same thing, they're not. I mean, you can say that, but there's no evidence that they're doing the same thing. They have spoken to very different strategies. I mean, listen to everything Xbox has said with how they've treated their platform, their content, and their strategy. They talk about, we've got to be in more places, and consoles are stagnating, and we believe that games should be accessible wherever gamers are, right? They're using lots of this dialogue and language. We're not hearing any of that from PlayStation. We don't have anything from PlayStation talking about, play anywhere. They're on record even recently in an interview with Steven Totillo about PS Plus and why they will not put their big games day and date on PS Plus. Do you see? It's like at every stage, they have made it crystal clear they have a very different approach and they have very different views of the market. Jim Ryan says that Game Pass day and date's value destructive. He talks about the virtuous cycle. Jim Ryan's gone, and here we are, PlayStation still saying the same things about not putting games on PS Plus day and date. You see what I'm saying? It's like, I just feel like there's easier ways to see when a company's changing than just like weird sound bites on Twitter. Like, I do think if you actually analyze the strategies of the company, they're very, very different. They've signaled that they are different to their shareholders. They have signaled that their strategies are different to the public at large. And I think that's always worth paying attention to, because I think it does, Detective Seeds, your comment got flagged. I had to approve it. Detective Seeds said, let me see if I can find his comment. Hang on. Just play Death Stranding 2 on normal and close your dirty little mouth. Listen, you. I literally mentioned you in the video, you jerk. I actually mentioned you in the video, dadgummit. Yes, I mentioned that in the show open, Mr. Chosen. So that was part of today's topic, so we can kind of talk about that now. We don't need to keep retreading the Helldivers thing. If you guys want to check out my video about Helldivers 2, and why I don't think this is a sign that PlayStation is changing, be sure to go give that video a watch. Again, I'll put the link in chat for you guys on Purple, and I'll put a link in the chat for you guys on YouTube. It's extremely helpful when you guys watch my uploads and leave comments and then come back here to discuss them. That's kind of something that we've been working on lately, is we want sort of like complimentary content on the channel, right? Where we have like the upload, people are interacting with the upload, the live stream, people are interacting with the live stream. I've got a bunch of shorts that just went out today. So as best you can, and as much as you enjoy it, engage with the content in the varying degrees that we deploy it, okay? So the YouTube is weak. Yeah, YouTube's just letting Purple have the day too. What's going on over here, boys? A 10 bomb away from 50, and y'all just letting it hang there like that. Like, this is Stone Spire is got to be seething in the chat about this. This is unbelievable to have such a tee up and nobody take advantage of it. So the aftermath of the Xbox layoffs, to me, has been pretty potent. you now have, Windows Central, multiple articles coming out and basically turning. And there it is, the 10 bomb on Purple. Team Purple once again saying that the day is mine, and they're now at 33 on the day, and they have taken the next milestone, and that is the 50. And I'm going to just gift 5 right now on Purple. See if we can't get a hype train going over here. Man, YouTube, you're just going to let them. You're just going to let them. They're just over here doing their thing. YouTube is suddenly not really having that strong presence. And a 5 bomb comes in from Wired Rope and gets us to 55. Now that's another tempting setup. I'm all paid up, and we're 20 away. Discord, good sir. Are you serious? I've been muted this whole time? I am so sorry, Discord. I swore I hit the button. I'm getting old and senile. Anyway. What was I saying? Okay, yeah. So the aftermath of the Xbox layoffs. We are now seeing everybody, and again, I think PlayStation knew this was going to happen. I think Xbox knew this was going to happen. I think that's why Helldivers 2 coming to Xbox is more about Xbox changing than PlayStation. Because in the wake of these layoffs and studios getting closed, games getting canceled, Romero Studios, I guess, met with Xbox the day before this happened. And we're like, yeah, game's doing great. You got this. It was I guess, a positive meeting. Phil Spencer just 5 months ago talked about the progress that Everwild was making. Apparently, internally, the ZeniMax MMO was receiving high praise. So, understandably, people are ticked off. Understandably. People are ticked off. We've now got, Windows Central is just turning right around and being heavily critical of Microsoft. Heavily. You've got guys from Larian. You got guys from Arcane. You got Sean Layden. I think Sean Layden's awesome. I should probably try to have him on. He's super willing to come on and do shows. And they're all basically saying, this is not going to work. Game Pass was never going to work. Game Pass is part of the problem. Microsoft is part of the problem. Everybody's turning on the brand. Now, I don't think it's a small thing when that happens. When outlets with Windows in the name and major people in the dev world, somebody from the studio that made a Game of the Year winner, is basically your freaking company, they've been very critical. The guys at Larian have been very critical of Microsoft and Xbox over the years for layoffs, and I told you they did not have a great relationship with them after Phil Spencer passively blamed them for the game coming to Xbox late. And then 24 hours later, Larian was like, we're shipping on Xbox without feature parity. The Series S will not get split screen. Now, since then, I believe they've added it. But in the waning, not waning, in the day after, Phil Spencer tried to passively blame them. They got their butt spanked, okay? Let's just call it what it is. Larian was like, you're going to say my name, okay? I'm in charge now, not you. Well, you're seeing the industry and people within it essentially turn on Xbox and Microsoft. Now, there are different elements of blame being handed out here. We got people blaming Amy Hood, saying she is setting unrealistic expectations. There's also people that are really ticked off that this seemingly has far more to do with Microsoft trying to fund their AI efforts. Their AI efforts being oh man, we've got to pay $80 billion into this, which goes back to my video about the layoffs. What was the point of all this? Why'd you buy all these studios if it was only going to become really expensive, and then the studios and the games are going to need to be canceled and turned off? You've been trying really hard to use waning in a sentence for a couple of weeks now. That should probably be dealt with in therapy this week. Do you know what it is, Zuby? I've used waning a couple of times in songs, and it's when I do that, all of a sudden my vocab it's like an infection. It's that's a fun word to say. Say that word. It's like the one fell swoop thing that Nate Bargatze, his little bit. No, guys, know the rules. Blame everyone besides Xbox, and it's dumb as a bag of rocks management. No. Trey Gaming, listen to me very carefully. Here is what I have in common with a lot of the big Xbox fans out there and a lot of the big Xbox guys with YouTube channels. I have been trying to say for the last 5 years that Microsoft is the devil in the room. Maybe not 5 years, sorry, 4 years. For the last 4 years, I have been trying to draw people's attention to the problem isn't Xbox, the problem is Microsoft. I really do feel like the Xbox fandom and the Xbox pundits and YouTubers are waking up to that reality right now. They're like, you know what? Microsoft's been the problem this entire time. I mean it. I think they're waking up to something that I've been screaming about for 4 years. It's like, this is not an Xbox problem. It's a Microsoft problem. It always has been. And that problem's not going to go away. Spencer's just the vessel. That's what I'm saying. A handful of them, not all of them. I'm just saying, I think I have that in common with them. They're looking squarely at Microsoft and like, wait a minute, you allowed your game division to spend $80 billion in acquisitions. Now you want to invest $80 billion in AI, so the gaming division's going to get sliced up. Make it make sense. What the frick? Like, I totally get their frustration. Xbox is Microsoft? Oh, no, it's not. No. The gaming division of Microsoft, Xbox, is, well, it is now, I guess, Chris. Maybe that's the point that you're making. It is now. They spent $80 billion on AI this year. Right. Apparently, they're about to spend another $80 billion on AI. Yeah, that's the other thing that people are bringing up, is that that's what this seems like this is about. This doesn't seem like it's about, oh, we bought too much, buyer's remorse. It's, no, we got to make cuts somewhere, and this is the branch of the company that makes us the least amount of money. Spencer's here because he's doing what they say to do with a smile on his face. I don't believe he wanted to give up like this. I don't believe it either. I don't believe he wanted it either. I think when, if this was a year ago, it may have been a bigger deal. Agreed. I think it's a well-made point about Helldivers 2 coming to Xbox. If it would have been like a year ago, it would have been a bigger deal because it would have been like, what the heck's going on? But with it landing now, with all the changes that have taken place at Xbox, like it doesn't even remotely feel like that big of a deal. It's like, what is Xbox anyways? I mean, what are they going to look like in the next 5 years? I think a lot of fans are feeling that, which I think is totally fair to feel. It's totally fair to feel like the brand has shifted on you, because in large parts it has. My headcanon is that ABK purchase was a Hail Mary. Phil said it would put Game Pass on a rocket ship, and when it didn't, then Mama Microsoft took over. I mean, I actually think that's a decent theory. I've seen that theory outlined before. The idea being that, like, if you look at the way that Phil talked about ZeniMax, he probably thought, if we're really going to do this, let's go big or go home. Like, let's really do this if we're going to do this. Let's buy the Kahuna burger. Let's buy the big one, and then let's really have a go at this. And I wonder if Starfield was meant to be the mover, because if you look at the way that like Starfield was marketed, if you look at the way that it was like the most talked about game that year, you look at Google Trends, number of articles, number of videos, the anticipation for that game was insane. Satya Nadella cites, this was before Black Ops 6, Satya Nadella cites it was the single largest new Game Pass subscription day of the subservice's history. Black Ops 6 stole that record. I remember saying, I think Black Ops 6 is going to take the record. That's a good record to hold. But you know what we're hearing now? This is very relevant, so let's take a look at it. Did you guys see this thing from Sneaker? So, Sneaker SO has been delivering what I would argue is a bit of a what's going on with what does NeoGAF not restructure its text here? I can't see the text. What the what? Oh, here we go. Hang on, let me see if I can increase the text for you guys. All right. Sneaker's got this crazy thread on NeoGAF that we need to look at. All right, we need to look at it. Hang on, it's really long, and I'm trying to find it. Okay. So we're going to take a look at this, because this is super relevant to what we're talking about. Because if the Game Pass experiment has failed, that played a role in what's happening right now. Because they thought Starfield and all these acquisitions would put everything into overdrive, and when that didn't happen, Satya steps in the room and says, it's time to execute Order 66. It's my time. I'm in charge now. Okay? So this is lengthy. So Sneaker says, I wouldn't describe it as being a difficult situation to get out of. It's not a subscription service that has had any significant growth. The last time it got anything even resembling a bump was when Call of Duty launched last year, but Game Pass has an absurdly high churn rate, so that eventually just settled out. It doesn't sound like they expect the service to get a similar bump in future releases of COD, purely because the novelty factor will have been gone, and the console adoption rate of Xbox is still backsliding, whereas the attach rate for Xbox Game Pass is over 90% console users versus PC Game Pass users. I always thought PC Game Pass was higher. You're right. Game Pass being sort of an antiquated in the modern Xbox era. It was a service primarily designed to heavily disrupt a calcified market heading into a market transition to hopefully yield market growth. There's a lot that can be discussed regarding how Game Pass as a model basically destroyed the purchasing habits of Xbox console users for the most part, which is something to note here. You know, it's funny. The level of anger and vitriol that I got when I said Game Pass has fostered an ecosystem and a culture of non-purchase. And Sneaker is a well-trusted and reliable insider, is like, the Game Pass model basically destroyed the purchasing habits of the Xbox users. I mean, you can't sit on podcasts and YouTube channels and brag about how you don't buy games and PlayStation fans are suckers for buying games and not be like, yeah, that's become part of your identity. It's totally true. Game Pass discussions tend to have me go on tangents, so I'll just focus in on what you asked about, what the future looks like. Part of the motivator that drove Microsoft to start releasing titles outside of the Xbox ecosystem was to release, I don't know what that is, software in places where Game Pass wasn't already available, all so they could get a much higher margin on those titles, and it certainly did work. Indiana Jones' PS5 release was a tremendous success for the team and the game, for example. Once Project Latitude was decided upon internally, the drive to try and expand Game Pass onto other platforms like Steam or PlayStation or Nintendo basically evaporated overnight. So then that's why Phil said we have no plans to put Game Pass on PlayStation and Nintendo, because the plan was not to do that. The plan was to put games. It hasn't been brought up since then. Now, here's where things get interesting. The future of the Xbox ecosystem is in the creation of a ramp to convert the people who are within the traditional ecosystem, console users, into being users who are using the Windows Store version of games or the Steam version of games, which begins chipping away at the viability of Xbox SKUs in general. Almost like what we've been saying all morning long. Creature's going to type in chat at any moment, they want you gone. I am of the notion that this right here is part of why Helldivers 2 is coming to Xbox. Their vision is to get you out of the traditional ecosystem and to be engaging with a Windows gaming device, which would then be you engaging with Steam. Because Game Pass is primarily a service who services Xbox SKU of titles, and with them planning on winding down the Xbox SKU and the platform eco over the next decade, it's a problem that essentially phases itself out with time unless PC Game Pass adoption ticks up. This right here is why Helldivers 2 coming to Xbox is not a threat. Sneakers is telling you guys, he's like, they are planning on winding down the Xbox SKU as far as the platform goes over the next decade, because the future Xbox is going to be a Windows gaming device that is basically a PC hybrid thing. It's not a traditional console. One of the variables they are keen to keep track of is just how many of their console users both adopt the next hardware platform and begin using the Windows OS version or Windows Store Game Pass to access those first-party releases. And because so many teams and projects are getting cut and will continue to be as time moves on, the value prospect of Game Pass will weaken. Yeah, I mean, you can't be shuttering studios and canceling projects and not see value of Game Pass weaken when the cadence of those games slows down. Like when you don't have a Perfect Dark, when you don't have an Everwild, when you don't have the ZeniMax MMO, like that's going to hurt the value of Game Pass. I doubt we'll see a year of output that'll be like 2025 or 2026 once we hit 2027 and onwards. So what Sneakers is saying is, as soon as we get outside of the current cadence, which is actually quite good, it was 4 years of bad cadence, you're going to get roughly 2 years of good cadence. He's saying it's going to slow down again, which I think makes sense given the shuttering and the canceling that we're seeing. And even with higher output it's getting, it's really not resolving their adoption or retention churn issues. The needle that I'm interested in seeing them thread is that they basically combine Game Pass subs with Xbox Live subs in an effort to boost Game Pass subs on paper, but also to drive up the cost of the subs of the console users. With the release of the new Windows OS powered Xbox console, if you're letting users access their Steam or Epic Game Store libraries, it's going to be almost impossible to ask those users to pay a Game Pass fee to access online multiplayer. They haven't made the decision yet on how they're going to handle this, but I have to imagine that if they kill the Game Pass sub requirements for online multiplayer for their next hardware, that's basically one massive nail in the future of Game Pass, as well as adding quite a bit to the price tag of the device. So this here is why I disagreed with Laura Fryer. I don't believe Xbox is like all in on Game Pass. I believe Xbox has continued and Microsoft has continued to deprioritize Game Pass in their marketing and in how they talk about things. They are far more heavily weighing and smacking on the drum of Play Anywhere now and the ecosystem verbiage as opposed to Game Pass verbiage. That's just been my observation. At that point, as a service, with the Xbox SKU of games basically living on borrowed time, Game Pass is going to have to convert a lot of people into Windows Store users, which is a conversion that they have basically failed at for a long time now. You also have to consider that the Game Pass version, the PC version of Game Pass, is cheaper right now. So I wonder if we see a structural change there as well. Like once this thing hits the market, are you going to see people that are basically like, oh yeah, I'm going to get the cheaper version of Game Pass? I mean, they're going to have to bring in some sort of a pricing parity at that point. Oh man, this is such a massive topic with so many different angles to it. I already am writing novels in this thread instead of coding up my current project, so I might have to get back to this over the weekend, but I'll try and give a bit of shallow answer to this. It is greed. So asking about like what's going on with the recent thing with companies, right? But greed presents itself in ways that just aren't insidious at face value, but it's greed nonetheless. I really don't think that making small games is looked down upon by anyone within the industry. In fact, if you ask developers, we feel the lack of smaller games just as much as the consumers do. Smaller games are often the bedrock for future iteration of design or ideas. There is another aspect to this. In that in the West primarily, we truly haven't tried to restructure how we make games, and this lack of refactoring, or rather maintaining the ways in which we learned how to build games 20 years ago, has caused this practice to continue to get more and more expensive. This is why I have predicted that the rise of AA and indie studios and indie games and AA games is going to impact AAA studios. You will see AAA studios making AA sized games at AAA quality. What you're going to see is, so one big company, instead of working on one big project, they will have multiple projects at once. So you'll have smaller incubation, smaller development cycles, more agile projects that can iterate more, innovate more, maybe be driven more by passion. So I think you'll start to see the large AAA companies starting to push out more AA size games, play smaller bets, take less risk. That's how they course correct the rising costs of development. That's been a prediction I've made for a while. There is hope, though, says Sneaker. I have said in other threads, but I'll reiterate it here. Expedition 33 is my game of the generation, I'm assuming. Not just because of how incredible the game is, but because the entire way they structured its development is basically the blueprint for a viable, sustainable, modern game development in the West. Its breakpoint Its break-even point was less than 1 million units, but it's a game that feels AAA in both look and scope. Hey, look, me and Sneaker agree. I've consistently said that I feel like Expedition 33 feels like a AAA game in look and scope. People disagree with me on that because there are some rough edges in the game. I've held to that even after rolling credits. I think the game looks and feels like a AAA game. I'm not alone in analyzing how they made that title with a fine-tooth comb, excuse me, to try to emulate those practices myself. So there's a lot of good information here. There really, really is. But I think the big takeaways are Game Pass churn is too high. The shift away from a traditional Xbox console is being seen not just by me, but as somebody who is very reliable and has leaked a lot of good information. And this, I think, plays into why Helldivers 2 is coming to Xbox, why the brand is completely shifting and changing, and why Sarah Bond said that Windows will be the largest gaming platform in the future. Like, that's their goal. This is all part of that. And I do believe you will see Game Pass slowly take the back seat and get less priority going forward, given that it didn't do what they were hoping it was supposed to do, especially when big titles like Starfield and Call of Duty moved the needle, but didn't actually change the profitability or the churn factor. If anything, it probably made it worse. So those are my thoughts. If we throw this somewhere as a highlight, make sure you subscribe to the channel and show up for the live shows. So we might start kind of grabbing segments of the show like that. So I'm going to do a little outro. Somebody said a tip came through, a $3 super chat tip from Wired Rope. My conspiracy theory is that they will kill Xbox, rebrand as Microsoft Gaming, and they'll kill Game Pass. I mean, I've got a video on the channel from a long time ago that basically said Microsoft killed Xbox, because that's what it feels like to me. And I did get a renewal as well. Your Marvel Rivals with 13 months says, I think we all need to remember the deep and profound impact of the statement that has been echoed through the grandest halls. Xbox better. Yeah, for sure. For sure. We're still a 20 bomb away from the next milestone. And make sure you guys are hitting like on the YouTube video. I appreciate that. Let's go for 300 likes. Now, let me grab some questions as well. I think there's been some people using the question command today, starting with Perfect Image. I moved the capture again. Man, why does that keep happening? There. Whoop, no. Still not quite right. There we go. When did Sony buy Nixxes? Because that's when Xbox and PlayStation shifted. I don't know, and I don't know if that assessment's correct, but I don't know when they bought Nixxes. Elohim says, I know this is a pie-in-the-sky idea, but I want your opinion on this. What if they went to Valve and have them develop a console with a hybrid operating system with working Linux and Windows? I mean, Valve has no interest in that. Valve's got SteamOS. Why would Valve do that? I don't think Valve has no interest in helping Microsoft at all. I mean, if anything, they're competing and Valve's ahead. So I don't know if you're going to see a relationship form there on like a future device or something. I don't think so. So, yeah. Spider Senso says, do you think PlayStation's new plan will be to add single-player games in the future to transfer people? Spider-Man 2, example, Spider-Man 2 on Xbox and Spider-Man 3. I don't think they're going to do this, okay? What's good, Ginger? Valve's way ahead right now? Yeah, Valve's ahead. I don't think Valve would do anything to, like, reach across and help Microsoft in any regard. Okay, so I've said this a couple of times, and Sneaker basically just backed me with what he said and where things are headed. The traditional Xbox console is no more. It is no more. There will be Windows gaming devices. So there is no future where PlayStation is porting games to Xbox because there will not be a traditional Xbox. A Windows gaming device will just be able to load up Steam. And I was wrong in my prediction. I was wrong. And I think the Helldivers situation proves me wrong. I said that I thought PlayStation would have a problem with their games playing on a future Xbox console device that could load up Steam. I think PlayStation is saying, no, we don't care. And I always said, if PlayStation doesn't care and they shrug this off, that's not a W for the hardcore Xbox fans. Like, haha, look at what we get. No, I think that's PlayStation saying, you're not a threat. You're such a small factor in the market now. We don't even care if people play our games on your quote-unquote Xbox. That's not the W people think it is. If you, in a couple of years, go to the store and you buy an Xbox that's a Windows gaming machine and you load up Steam and you load up Tsushima, I don't think PlayStation gives a frick about that. I don't think they care at all. I don't think they care. I don't think they see it as a factor in the industry. I don't think they see it as a factor against their future aspirations with Project Amethyst and a PlayStation 6. I think they're like, yeah, it's fine. A game sale is a game sale. The only reason they won't take that posture, Ginger, is with something that they feel is a direct threat, which is why I don't think you'll see any of the big titles like land on the Xbox Series X or something. Like, I also don't think they would want to port any of their games to the Series S. You're not going to try and port Ragnarok, Forbidden West, Spider-Man 2, or Ghosts of Yotei to the Series S. That just doesn't stand to reason. It's like, why would you do that? The entire thing that you guys have really been capitalizing on is that you're pushing graphics and performance with the Pro, and the S would be an enormous step back for their products. I don't think that they would do it. And I don't think they would do it because it's there's no forward thinking there. There's no forward thinking. It's backward. They won't have to as it's on Steam. Right, but Steam's not going to be on the S and the Series X. As far as we know, Steam's not showing up there. I mean, maybe. I don't know. Maybe they retroactively figure out a way to do it. But then you're going to be dealing with the limitations of the Steam box and those games and, you know, what they need to run. I don't think they'll be able to do that. I think you're going to need a box that needs it to be Windows. So if they can somehow get this Windows OS stripped down and you can opt to update your Series S and X to that operating system and then sideload Steam, very possible. But at that point, PlayStation is going to go, who the frick cares? That gen is dead and cooked and gone. We're on to the next. We're on to the next frontier, which is AI, machine learning, Project Amethyst, and the PlayStation 6. They ain't going to give a hoot and a holler if in like a year or two you can update your Series S and X to a Windows gaming device and you load up Steam and then you play some sort of well-running version on a Series S. I don't think they would care about that. Question from Blue Blur. How do I fix my portal? I have settings to 5 gig and I'm connected to Wi-Fi, but I'm still getting Wi-Fi issues. I have factory reset to get rid of any bugs. Wi-Fi notifications every 30 minutes. Homie, I'll be honest. I feel like you were here before with this problem, and nobody is having that issue here. Many of us have the portal. Many of us use the portal. This sounds like an issue with either with your Wi-Fi. Maybe you're going into a room and there's too much between you and the Wi-Fi. You know, I was at my brother-in-law's house. He had his Wi-Fi underneath and encased in a metal shelf beneath a printer. And I like pulled it out and set it up on top of the desk, and like all of a sudden everybody had better speeds and connections. So, yeah. Perfect Image says, it sucks that the layoffs happen, but these games would have made sales. Just trying to understand from a business perspective. We don't know. I think the idea that these games are all dismissed is like they would have sucked and nobody would have bought them. You know, that was largely Asmongold's take, was that, well, these games were bad and bad games should be canceled, and he thinks, you know, 343 should all be working at McDonald's. I mean, I believe that's just sweeping reductionism to act like all of these problems are the devs. Like, then you have to ask the question, why are there so many bad devs at Microsoft all of a sudden? Why are there so many bad devs at Xbox? I've said for a very long time, and I'm starting to get agreement here, I'm starting to get agreement from the people who are pro Xbox, that Microsoft is acidic to creative process. I have been screaming this for years, and I think people are starting to realize that maybe the devil in the room is not Game Pass. I mean, Game Pass has played its own role here, but it's Microsoft. Game Pass could have certainly had its own negative effect on the culture and the ecosystem of the user base of Xbox. But as far as quality games coming out, I think the biggest barrier for those quality games coming out and doing a good job has been Microsoft and how they treat their companies. Check my last. I honestly don't think it's that deep. I feel like Arrowhead just pushed for this and Sony said, F it, they're dying anyway. According to somebody, that was my theory, Sneaky Wolf, that Arrowhead pushed for it. According to somebody that I trust, Xbox initiated the negotiations. If you want a greater breakdown of this, go watch my video on the channel right now. It's called Xbox is Not a Threat. I'll put a link in chat. You guys on YouTube can watch it. You guys on Purple can watch it. Do your best to support my uploads anytime they hit. Give them a like, give them a comment. They're a little bit longer lately, but they're more conversational, and we seem to be getting really, really good response to that. So thank you to everybody who has watched the videos in their entirety and left remarks, comments, and likes. I greatly appreciate that. That is probably one of the most important things we're doing right now as a channel, is we're investing in the uploads that we feel are at the highest quality. There was a tip. I read the tip. My conspiracy theory is that they will kill the Xbox, rebrand as Microsoft Gaming, and then kill Game Pass. I read that and said that I've got a video on the channel right now where I argued that Microsoft killed Xbox, but that's an older video, and that was me sort of forecasting what I saw was coming. It's on the channel right now. It is. When did we even do that? No, hang on. I think I said killed Xbox with an ED. And here you go. Right here. Microsoft killed Xbox a year ago. This is my video from a year ago that I argue that Microsoft killed Xbox, and I think it's all happening. It's all happening now. Corey says Arrowhead doesn't own the Helldivers IP. They have no say in where the game goes. The only way this game would appear on Xbox is if Sony agreed. Who initiated? It doesn't matter. It's a matter of fact, Sony agreed. Right, but Corey, why they agreed is more important than the fact that they agreed. Think about that, Corey. Yeah, we can say they agreed, but why they agreed is far more important than just being like, but they agreed. Okay, cool. Now let's do some analytical thinking. Instead of just saying something that's platitudinous, let's apply some critical thinking here. Why would they agree to this? Think about everything PlayStation has said this gen. Think about it. Analyze their statements about live service. Analyze their statements about their games, their big tentpole titles going to PC. Analyze their statements about PS Plus. Analyze interviews they just did with Steven Totillo about why they don't put their big games on PS Plus day and date. Analyze all their comments from Jim Ryan talking about Virtuous Cycle and all this stuff. Analyze all those statements. Why would they suddenly shift and change for a platform that's not doing very well? Why? That's more interesting than being like, well, they did it. So, okay, here's another way of looking at this. A lot of people are looking at this situation, and there's two extreme reactions. One extreme reaction is, I'm getting rid of my PlayStation. Screw PlayStation for doing this. It's a betrayal. And then there's like the really pro Xbox guys that are like, yep, PlayStation's going third party, full slate. Okay, both of these reactions, I believe, are irrational and not rooted in reality or fact. I think this right here is because we live in an escalation machine. The internet is an escalation machine. So the strongest reaction gets the most interaction. I'm selling my PlayStation. Okay. The whole slate, they're going third party. Okay. These are not rooted in reality. This is bluster. This is just exaggeration and bloviation. Okay. That's why it's important to, as the dust settles, say, well, wait, why would... Let's just run through some theories. Why would PlayStation suddenly be okay with this? Why? Why do people care PlayStation games go to Xbox anyway? Literally, who cares? Think about it like this, Bellows. Imagine that one of the core... Oh, my chair just reclined. Imagine one of the core reasons that you go to PlayStation is because you feel like their commitment to exclusives and quality has delivered things worthy of your purchase, and you don't want that to end. Okay? If you look at the quality of the first-party games from PlayStation and you compare them to the quality of the first-party games from Xbox, it's very clear that PlayStation's been doing a better job. I've seen very like non-console warrior people say this. They'll just straight up say, Xbox first-party has been bad this gen, PlayStation first-party has been better. Okay? If you don't agree with that, that's fine. I'm talking about consumers who think that. So you could be like, nope, PlayStation first party has sucked and Xbox first party has been better. Okay, fine. I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about consumers who believe they've been getting better first-party games, and they believe that one of the reasons they're getting those better games is because they prioritize the console and development for it first. And they're worried that this is the beginning of that coming to an end. That's why they're worried, Bellows. I'm telling them that I don't see signs of that going away because I am that guy. I am the guy who thinks PlayStation's done a better job this gen. I am the consumer who thinks their commitment to exclusives, their commitment to first-party studio games not going to PS Plus and being built for PlayStation first, I believe I get better games because of that, and I see no signs of them changing from that strategy. My support of that strategy has never been about console tribalism. It's been because I think the games are better quality. I feel like I get better games. If you look at the games I've played, Horizon Forbidden West, God of War 2018, and Ragnarok, Returnal, Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, Astrobot, Death Stranding 2 right now, and Spider-Man 2, and Ghost of Yotei, right? Like, I feel like these games are incredible. I don't feel like they have a match from Xbox. I don't. You can disagree with me. My opinion as a gamer is that these games are not matched right now. I don't think they have a match in third-party development. I don't think there's like a multi-plat game that holds a dadgum candle to any of the titles I just listed. I think they're all far better than third-party multi-plat and Xbox first-party. Now, that's just my opinion. You can have a different opinion as a consumer, but my opinion is I just rattled off 10 games that I believe, it's not surprising, they're all like Game of the Year nominated games as well. So I have some agreement. I don't see any signs of change at PlayStation. There are people that think that I'm wrong, and they think this is just the beginning, and PlayStation's going to start doing day and date and shipping the whole slate, and yep, they're going to... And I'm like, no, they're not. They would have signaled that already. They'd be restructuring studios. They'd be hiring. They'd be setting up for parallel developments. They'd be telling the shareholders. They'd be creating new budgetary line items for this movement, and they're not doing that. Xbox did all those things. The irony here, the thing that absolutely kills me, Xbox signaled from 1,000 yards away they were doing this, and the Xbox guys buried their heads in the sand. When Phil Spencer said what he said to Famitsu, and the CFO said what he said at the Wells Fargo Summit, and Satya said what he said, they all buried their heads in the sand and said, that's not what they mean, and they're just talking ABK. And now, when that's the type of analysis you would need to claim PlayStation's going full slate, PlayStation's turning into third party, PlayStation's going to move all their titles to Xbox, that level of analysis would be needed. They're not willing to do it. Why? Because there's no evidence to support it. So the grand irony is when their brand signaled it a year and a half to 2 years ago, and they were in denial, buried their heads in the sand, a lot of them actively astroturfed for Microsoft and ran the talking points and ran the PR to keep this quiet and to keep people satiated, to keep you on Game Pass. Don't act like that wasn't a factor. A lot of these guys were running PR for Microsoft and Xbox. They are complicit. They were part of the reason lots of people stayed on Game Pass and lots of people stayed loyal. And now, when we arrive in 2025, and all that evidence was there that they ignored that Xbox was going to do it, they want to wax eloquent about, like, this is where the industry's going. PlayStation's going to do the same thing. And it's like, where's the analysis? Have they said a single thing in an earnings call? Have they said a single thing with their budgets? Are they hiring for it? Are they restructuring their studios? No, they're not. So when the level of analysis you get's no deeper than the thimble, don't expect good predictions. Don't expect good market analysis. You're not getting analysis. You're getting PR puffery talking points. That's the grand irony here. It's like, if you guys would have had any level of analysis, integrity, or honesty, you'd have told your audiences, you'd have told the people that trust you, this is coming. They're going to ship games to PlayStation and Nintendo. They're changing their strategy. And they didn't do it. They bad faith, they obfuscated, they completely shifted everything around to make it seem like this wasn't happening. And now when PlayStation moves Helldivers 2 to Xbox, and there's no sign, there's absolutely no sign in the earnings calls, the earnings reports, they're not saying any of this to any of the interviews that they're doing. There's not a single breadcrumb to be like, oh yeah, they're definitely changing strategies. They'll insist that they are. And if you think it's a coincidence that the Helldivers announcement came last week, you are once again falling for the AstroTurf. You think that was a coincidence? You think that was an accident? Canceling games, shuttering studios, mass layoffs, and you're like, oops-a-daisy, we just accidentally slipped on a banana peel and have a really, really great announcement that all our little loyal minions can run with and make thumbnails with and make headlines about. You know what's glorious about that? Is there are people that aren't doing it. I really like when outfits like Windows Central are like, yeah, you know what? No, I'm not playing the game anymore. We're not going to distract from what happened. We're not going to act like everything's fine and start talking about Helldivers. They've certainly covered it, but they're like, you know what? No. And they turn critical. That's what I respect. That's what I've been saying this entire gen is stand up for yourself. Hold the dadgum company accountable. Anybody right now that's just immediately moved from layoffs and the damage and the disappointment, and they've immediately moved to Helldivers and talking about like, yep, this is where the industry's going and there's no more exclusives and yep, PlayStation's following suit. You pay very careful attention to how they handle themselves and what they talk about. Pay very careful attention because that is likely a part of the AstroTurf. We just got to pave over this. We got to act like this didn't happen. We got to act like everything's okay. There are bright days ahead, and we're going to use Helldivers as a distraction. So you want to hide behind layoffs and act like nobody should talk about it in a way where we hold Xbox and Microsoft accountable. Nobody should be holding pundits and talking heads accountable for playing a complicit role in misleading the public and act like, well, you know, I'm going to hide behind the layoffs in a cowardly way. And then you're immediately going to shift to Helldivers. And if you're never going to come back and you're never going to retread the subject and you're going to hold Xbox accountable, if you're never going to hold yourself accountable for playing a part, well, then I think the public should see that for what it is. And I think you should make your decisions on who you trust, whose content you consume, who you follow on Twitter. You should be basing that off of who you feel is giving you the most robust analysis, even when it's unpleasant. Even when it's unpleasant. If tomorrow Herman Hulse sat down and told the shareholders, we're changing strategy, we're going to start shipping our games day and date on Nintendo and Xbox, do you know what I would say? Okay, guys, this is what they said. I think this is a terrible choice. I wouldn't try to gloss over it. If tomorrow PlayStation walked out and said, we're heavily investing in AI and computing power, and we're shuttering a bunch of our studios and canceling a bunch of beloved projects, I wouldn't gloss over that. I'd be like, it's a time for empathy. I'd be like, what the frick are you doing? That's what I'd be critical. I'd be like, what are you doing? Why are you gutting your gaming studios for AI? I would be angry about it. I would hold them accountable. I wouldn't act like that's okay. Tomorrow, that's Death Stranding 2. Again, if you can't get the robust analysis, if you can't get the criticism, if you can't get that level of accountability, then what you're getting is, I think, just repackaged PR. I think that's what you're getting a lot of the times. It's just repackaged PR, which is why you should be skeptical and you should be wary of trusting it. You don't have to go out and get your finger in anybody's faces. You don't have to call anybody names. You can just say, you know what? I don't feel like I'm getting robust coverage. I don't feel like I'm getting both sides. I don't think I'm getting accountability and truth. I feel like I'm getting repackaged PR. And make your judgment as to where you're going to hang your hat and who you're going to listen to. You might conclude that I'm too biased and you don't support and watch my content. As long as you're employing critical thinking, that doesn't bother me one bit. That's what you should do. You should be able to come into content and deduce the bias and then ask the question, is the bias overriding the coverage? Is it? Is the bias disrupting the coverage? Press on my content and me. I've got a bias. I clearly am engaging most of my time on my PlayStation. Has that kept me from being critical of them? Has that kept me from being critical of their strategies and their choices? No, it hasn't. This guy's back from vacation. Mash with 24 months was off last week, here to celebrate 24 months, and for you being right about Xbox direction and the double speak. Thank you, Mash, for 24 months. And a 50 bomb from Mash. He says, we're 20 away, and I don't care. We're going to 106. Mash, they did you proud last week. They got all the way to 700. All the way to 700 without you. Absolutely crushed it. And now it's going to be 87 because a 20 bomb comes in as well. Mash is like, I'm making up for lost time. And there it is. I now owe YouTube 15 members. This guy comes back and he just flexes on the chat. Purple, are you going to have anything to say about that? Mash is just going to take a sample of every tier of gifting because a 10 bomb comes in as well. And 136. He's basically telling you guys there are multiple ways to gift. There's 50, there's 20, there's 10, there's 5, there's single. Let's see if Purple has an answer. Nightfire says, Lono, you can tell the difference between the Xbox guys and everyone else because you would not be the only one. The PlayStation content creators would be marching to Sony headquarters with pitchforks. I mean, the Sony guys are very angry about Helldivers. And a 5 bomb comes in from MASH and gets us to 141. Thank you so much. And then that's going to be 92 and then 93. I'm just going to make it 94 because I know MASH is going to do another single. And the single comes in from Joker Quinn. He's going to do it. I'm going to take it to 143. I know it's coming. There it is. I like to troll. MASH likes to troll. He does. Steve Marson says, okay, MASH, now do it again in reverse. Stop it. Stop it. You leave MASH alone. No, he didn't do a single. He is going in reverse, dadgummit. Okay, so that's going to be a 10 bomb from MASH to 152. And the member battle now jumps to 104 to 33. No single 10 instead. Okay, there it is. There it is. He decided he didn't want to do the single. He's like, I'm not. He in a world of like limbo. He's like, how low can you go? He's like, I'm not going that low. Just the 10. Okay. So again, you don't need to go out here and go to war with people and call them names. Just make those decisions. Be like, you know what? The analysis of Xbox's evolution was incredibly wanting. People buried their heads in the sand and said that it wasn't going to happen, and then it did. And now those very same people are going to try to make some kind of an argument that like, oh yeah, PlayStation's doing the same thing. I would say their analysis has been wanting and extremely lacking, and it's a cause for you to really question and be skeptical. You know? If you guys got a gifted member from MASH, say thank you to him. But I want you to imagine if MASH just stopped hanging out here, okay? We are a fan-funded operation. I know there's a lot of podcasts that are basically completely fan-funded on Patreon. That's essentially what we are. My stream is public. My content is public and free to consume. But this is a fan-funded channel. So if you enjoy the daily shows, consider really changing the ratio here. We've got like 2,000 to 3,000 people every month who get a gifted member. We need a lot of you to click that join button and pick $6 member plus. Guys on Purple have been doing a great job with their primes and with gifteds and with paying for their own as well. That is a huge aspect of how I'm able to do this full time. If you look at my YouTube channel, we are not some big giant channel, and Purple, yeah, 160,000 followers, but we only average about 100 viewers because everything got detonated 5 years ago. So we are just not in the position that we once were. PlayStation PC ports have not been detrimental for the PS5 game sales numbers on a console or PS5 selling in the market compared to the PS3 or the PS4. I think this is a well-made point, Chris, and I think part of what has helped is that, you know, part of what has helped is that they're actually getting new users. They're getting people to convert. I mean, they're coming from somewhere. You got to ask yourself that question. They're coming from somewhere. I owe YouTube 20. I'm going to do that now. Guys, make sure you have checked out the latest upload, though. It is basically about Helldivers coming over, and I argue that Helldivers 2 coming to Xbox is proof that Xbox is not a threat, and I think that's a pretty significant development. Essentially, I argue in the video that it's less about PlayStation changing, and it's more about the fact that Xbox has changed. Witcher left a comment on the video. and said, Sony saw that once a handheld comes out, Xbox gamers will have Helldivers anyway, so why not just release it immediately? Xbox is doing good for all gamers by merging console and Windows gaming and killing exclusive BS. They will win the next gen for sure. I don't believe that for a second. Xbox isn't worried about winning the next gen. Yeah, I don't believe that for a second. I don't think Xbox is even remotely concerned with winning next gen. That's not what they're gunning for. I think that's a complete misread of everything that's been happening. I think that's a complete misread. I think Xbox is saying that's just not our concern. I think that's how they compelled them to bring Helldivers over. This guy says, until you see Spider-Man: The Last of Us on Xbox, what will you say then? I see no signs of that ever happening. Future Xbox consoles will be Windows gaming devices with Steam. No need to port when they have Steam access. Yeah, there's just no need to port. When you have Steam access, like, there won't be Xbox ports. There won't be an Xbox operating system to port to. Do you see? Like, I think people keep missing that. It's like, I say that in the video. I'm like, you don't need to port the games over. You'll be able to go to the store in a couple of years and buy an Xbox Windows gaming device and just play PlayStation games on it. PlayStation is signaling with Helldivers that they don't care about that. They don't care. They're like, yeah, go ahead. That's fine with us. I don't think a Windows gaming console PC hybrid, I don't think it's going to be industry disruptive. I don't think it's going to move hundreds of millions of units. Like, okay, so Switch 2 is on pace to probably surpass Switch 1. PlayStation 5 is on pace to match PS4. So you're talking about two companies with hundreds of millions of units in circulation. And an Xbox PC Windows gaming device is, number one, not going to be cheap. You got to remember that. I don't think it's going to enter the market and be like a Series S for like $300. It's not going to be cheap. I don't think that device is going to be disruptive. I don't think you being able to play Ghost of Tsushima or Returnal on it is a threat to anything that PlayStation is doing. I think they're going to be like, well, yeah, that's fine. They're not going to move that many units of that. It's not going to be a deterrent or like a detractor from buying future consoles from PlayStation. I think Microsoft lost the console space as had again matter, and they're gunning for PC dominance. Their end game in gaming is to control PC space and eventually make a run to buy Steam. As we've stated, Microsoft is a software company. Why not own the largest? I don't think they want to go for Steam. I think they want to compete with Steam. Yeah, I don't think they want to try to buy Steam. We would really hope and pray that Gavin and whoever he hands the company off to when he retires would be very much against that. The cheapest way to play the new Xbox games will now be a Sony console or a handheld. Yes, as long as those new Xbox games are play anywhere. And a single comes in from Stone Spire. I know what Stone Spire's going to do. Now listen, y'all. This guy did this all last week, and he almost never got anybody to bite, okay? He's going to do 2 more single gifteds. He wants the 20 bomb up to 175 from 155. Somebody gear up and help this man. Peachy Creamy's just going to destroy the whole thing. 155, and then Peachy Creamy's going to drop a 5 bomb and get us to 160. Sorry, Stone Spire. You have been so faithful with that. He tries his darndest to set those up, and then Peachy comes in and wrecks the joint. Okay, so that's going to be 8 in the member battle. So it is now, what is that? 12. There we go. I wonder if Marathon delay has anything to do with Helldivers 2 being ported to Xbox. I would imagine they're completely unrelated because I think this was negotiated in the past, Astro. If you think about the fact that they negotiated this and got Nixus to port it, they likely negotiated and discussed this last year, which would have been well before they knew about Marathon's woes. They didn't slap this together, brother. This is coming out in a month, meaning this was greenlit sometime last year. Meaning it's not reactionary. A lot of the times when we have these discussions about state of plays and showcases, a lot of the times people will say things like that. Oh man, they did this because of this. And it's like, they can't react that fast and just slap something together or slap a deal together or slap a port together. That's generally not how it works. What's the point of having a Steam console if the next Xbox can just sideload Steam? Yeah, I don't have a whole lot of thought on a Steam console in the future. We'll have to wait and see what Steam does. We've got a lot of rumors about that, but have you seen the Mafia stuff? Mafia the Old Country, 9 minutes of new gameplay. Is that what you're talking about? I have not seen that yet, no. That hit just today. Yeah. Hollow says I didn't understand this either. What are you not understanding, Hollow? I don't know what you're referring to. Steam console wouldn't be running Windows. Yeah, it would be running the Steam OS. Blue Blur asking a question. Is Halo on PS5 still happening after all the layoffs? Also, what the heck type of game was Everwild supposed to be? Just seemed like a boring empty sandbox. We knew virtually nothing about Everwild. So, yeah. Oh, hang on. Let me turn the brightness of the monitor down. Holy moly. I'm opening up a spreadsheet, and I'm like seeing the sun. We turned up the brightness for Madam. She played Death Stranding on Saturday for you guys. Thank you to everybody who continues to support that upload. I really appreciate it, man. You guys are leaving comments and really helping that thing. Appreciate it so much. Helldivers 2 on Xbox is fine for me, says Petrov, but not first-party single-player games. I think they are safe. Brooklyn, I honestly thought this would have been on Xbox day one. I've been in support of that since the beginning. This is one of those times where even if it gets a little obnoxious, I'm going to keep telling y'all my position on Helldivers hasn't changed. Like, I'm not there are people that are like, well, you're shifting the goalposts, or you're doing this. Like, no, I've actually said this since the launch. I have not changed my position on this, not one iota. Not one bit. Haven't changed. Now you can misrepresent what I say, and you can falsely summarize my stuff. That's fine. If you want to argue with a mirage of who I am and my positions, I don't care about that, because it doesn't really exist. The guy that sits in the chair and the guy that makes content said on multiple occasions, I'd be totally fine with Helldivers 2 going to Xbox. I don't see the business side of it. My primary concern would be quality. I don't want Arrowhead having to do increased support of different versions and quality and patches with the Series S and a Series X version. I always argued the business side of it as well as the quality side of it, but I never was opposed to it happening. If anybody's out there claiming I'm saying otherwise, they're not being honest. They're not representing my position honestly. So, and I don't have any concern with that, because you're arguing against somebody that doesn't exist. Didn't get to watch on Saturdays. How'd she like it? I don't think she understands it. She's like, that's the game. I'm like, yes. You deliver packages and it's hard and there's stuff in your way. And you eventually get vehicles and you can use the vehicles. So, she didn't vibe with it. It was funny to watch her different approach to certain things. But yeah, she did not vibe with Death Stranding 2. So if you guys missed the stream on Saturday, Madam had an okay time with it. I wouldn't say it was a good time. So, but that was the perk for the week. Do you think Grounded 2 will be coming to PS5 anytime soon? No, I would imagine that Grounded's going to do preview program and then 1.0, and then it'll be staggered when it finally comes to PS5. That would be my assessment of Grounded 2. So, this guy says something I agree with. Helldivers is more of a PC, Xbox style of game than a PlayStation game. I actually agree with that. I do. Steam has the higher player count, so you may be correct. It's not, to me, it's actually not surprising that Helldivers 2 has a higher player count on PC. It's not necessary. It's more of a, knock-around multiplayer game. And PlayStation has been sort of notoriously known as a single-player platform for a very long time. You know, even though Call of Duty is enormous on their platform, the movers and the shakers over there at PlayStation tend to be single-player games. You know, so their endeavors into live service you're probably going to consistently see a larger amount of the player bases land on PC because of the player base that they've kind of fostered. We've talked about this with Microsoft, right? You foster the ecosystem with Game Pass, it affects where people spend their money. PlayStation's fostered an ecosystem of like a lot of COD heads and then people playing single-player games. So it stands to reason that when a live service game hits PlayStation, it's going to tend to have a greater chance of engagement on PC and not on PlayStation. I don't think there's anything wrong with saying that. I think that's actually a good assessment of the cultural differences between the various platforms and how that can have a very, very noticeable effect on how games perform, how games sell, how engagement sort of trickles out, and how engagement kind of lands. I'm curious what an Xbox type of game is. Now, I talked about this in my video, Patrick, and I said that, and this again is just my sort of opinion and my experience, I have always thought of Xbox as the multiplayer platform and PlayStation as the single-player platform. It's not rigid. That's just sort of a perception of me as a consumer. And I feel like Helldivers has that kind of knock-around multiplayer vibe that just feels like an Xbox title. Their armor, the vibe, it just, I don't know. That's why I always thought if you put it on Xbox, I think people would kind of be down. I think they would like it. Especially if you throw some Master Chief armor in there or some, Gears of War armor in there. Yo, Bandit coming in with a Member Plus. Bandit, was that an upgrade or just a renewal? If it was an upgrade, it counts as 2. Anytime you guys upgrade from Member Lite to Member Plus, I count it as 2 because that is a huge, I can't stress this enough. Imagine someone's in the room, okay, and they're gonna strangle a kitten like if you don't upgrade. That's how dire it is. No, I'm just kidding. But seriously, that's a clip for the people who call me knee beggar. There we go. It was renewal. Thank you, Bandit. That makes sense to me as well. Yeah, I don't know. I look at Helldivers 2, and I'm like, this game could do really well on Xbox. They've got some hurdles to climb over. It's not on Game Pass. Gears of War Reloaded's landing same day on Game Pass. The hype may have passed. You see? It's like, I don't know. They've got some hurdles to climb over. Wired Rope says, will the live service game come to Xbox? I'm sorry, the Zero Dawn live service game. So here's what I think is going to happen. There are games in development right now that are future live service games for Xbox. I'm sorry, I said that wrong. I'm reading comments. This guy says, I told Xbox gamers 2 years ago. I supplanted words. I do that all the time. There are games in development right now that are live service games for PlayStation. I think PlayStation knows the hardware future of Xbox is shifting to Windows machines that will be able to run Steam. What that means is there is zero impetus to change development pipelines. There is zero impetus to port games or add Xbox to the delivery of the game, to the development of the game. There's no reason to do it. There isn't. Xbox hardware's future is one of traditional console exodus and the implementation of Windows gaming devices that can run Steam. So Marvel Tokone Fighting Souls. My estimation is that game will be playable on the Xbox PC console hybrid when it drops. It'll be playable through Steam. That's just a prediction that I'm making. I could be wrong. That's a prediction I'm making. I have changed my position on this. I thought that PlayStation would have an issue with that. I am saying otherwise now. I'm like, I don't think PlayStation will give a frick. I don't think PlayStation will care 1 inch if people boot up their games, their ports, their live service games on an Xbox console PC hybrid. I don't think PlayStation will care at all. I don't. I think Helldivers 2 signals, again, it's less about PlayStation changing. Think about what I'm saying. PlayStation isn't changing any of the pipeline. any of the development, any of the bandwidth. They're simply continuing to do what they do, porting games to Steam later and putting live service games on Steam day and date. They're continuing to do what they've been doing for the last 5 years, and then Xbox is going to have a device in the next 2 years that will be able to play Steam games. Do you see? Like, it's more of a signal that Xbox is changing than PlayStation is changing. Does that make sense? Like, I don't know. I could be wrong. That's just how I see it. I looking at this and looking at how much Xbox has changed. This is why I said last week to the really, really, strong Sony ponies out there, I was like, you guys can't shout and scream and gleefully celebrate for weeks that Xbox is abandoning hardware and they're going to be letting other people make their hardware and the future devices aren't even going to be Xboxes, they're going to be Windows gaming devices. You can't celebrate that and then see this as a problem. If that's Xbox's future for hardware, this is not disruptive or damaging to PlayStation in the least. I don't find it consistent. I don't find it consistent to be doing all of that celebratory coverage of Xbox's evolution, but then to act like... See, this is the mistake a lot of people are making, and I think the Sony ponies are making the same mistake. So, for a while, I had people that would leave comments, and they would say things like, yeah, but Xbox is really, really going to win, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And I'm like, you're talking about Xbox as if they still care about these things. You're talking about Xbox as if nothing has changed in the last 5 years, all right? There were Xbox fans that would do that. They would leave remarks, they would leave comments that very much felt structured around where things were at the beginning of this gen. I think the PlayStation guys are falling prey to the exact same mistake. You're talking about this as if Microsoft hasn't completely evolved and completely changed the fabric of what it is to be an Xbox, as well as Xbox's future. What's Xbox care about? I think Xbox cares about publishing, cloud, and having an ecosystem. They are not concerned at all with having a traditional console in the future. It's not in their purview. It's not something that they're going to build or be concerned with. They are completely abandoning that front. You can think that's a good thing or a bad thing. I'm simply speaking within the realm of like what I'm observing and what's been signaled and what's been said. And I'm like, yeah, these guys are completely changing what they're doing. And because they're completely changing what they're doing, I think PlayStation is responding accordingly. And they're like, yeah, that's fine. You can have Helldivers. Again, the theory that was posed to me, was posited to me from the person who sort of was in the know about how this went down and how Xbox was the one that initiated it and not Arrowhead and not PlayStation. It's a refugee strategy. There are going to be a lot of traditional console fans looking for a home in the coming years. They're setting themselves up to be the cloud gaming frontrunner. I've seen a lot of takes about that. Bandit. Asmongold said that. Zach said that. He thinks they're going to be in a better position because he thinks cloud gaming is the future. I don't know him personally, but I've always gotten the impression he's more of a PC guy, and I don't know why PC guys would think that or champion that. I think the cloud market's going to be potentially very big and very lucrative, and they're in a good position to make good money there, but I don't know why anybody would be sort of championing the death of hardware and cloud being like your primary way of playing. I don't want that. I don't mind cloud being there as an additive thing, but I don't think cloud is going to become the main way that you engage for a very, very long time. Like, maybe my grandchildren will have such great advancements within cloud gaming and latency and internet infrastructure that they can play games on cloud as if the hardware's right there in their living room. That certainly is possible. I don't think during this gen or the next gen or even the one after it, I don't think we're going to see that. I don't think we're going to see this shift of like, yeah, everybody's playing on cloud now. No one wants hardware anymore. the investment of Nvidia and AMD and PlayStation and Nintendo into hardware that you hold in your hand or plug into a TV or a monitor and game on, I don't think you're going to see people shift away from that to cloud because of just the sheer nature of internet infrastructure in parts of the world, and in America most notably, how much it lags behind. That's an enormous barrier. You know what I mean? FCAT says GeForce is now the top dog in cloud gaming. Nobody is doing GeForce now, even trying as a death sentence, asks Stadia. I completely disagree with you. The change in strategy from Sony has clearly happened, and we all know the real reason. The Ministry of Truth has been lying, and Super Earth needs more Helldivers. It's pivotal for the war effort. There was a good comment like that on the video about how this is all about democracy. Payu771 says, the real question is, would they have sent Helldivers 2 to Xbox if Marathon didn't get delayed? Marathon's 100% multi-platform, supposed to come out in September. I think Helldivers was the backup plan. That makes no sense, as this was lightly negotiated and put into place last year before anything happened with Marathon. Yeah, I don't agree with that take. I think everything was negotiated last year. And if you put all that into place to have everything ready to go, that was all before Marathon. We didn't know anything about Marathon. What's this Digital Foundry clip that you have? We have a 22-second clip from Digital Foundry. What's old... I couldn't hear myself. Hang on. Madam despises mic monitoring, so I always have to turn it off. What's old cuddly John Linneman saying here? Let's see.
At this point, no company should ever allow themselves to be acquired by Microsoft. If you're a gaming company, don't do it. Stay out of it. It's a bad deal. People were saying this during the Activision stuff. Everyone that supported that was wrong completely. If we supported it, we were wrong. This was a big mistake.
I don't say this often, but I think that's pretty based, yo. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, he's right. Well, then he'll lose it. I'm not getting out of the chair to police this. You tell him if it continues, he's going to lose it. Yeah, Linneman nails it. Linneman nails it in that clip. I support you not saying that often. Yeah, I don't say based. I don't. But that I believe people would describe what John Linneman said in that clip as based. I mean, he's basically saying what I've been saying and what so many of us have been saying. It's like there were even Xbox guys that were like, this was a mistake. This was a mistake. You should have added the yo after. Well, Trill, I wanted to make it as painful as possible. Because what I wanted to do is I didn't want to ever be tempted to say it. Does that make sense, Trill? It's like I would be tempted to say it, so I had to make it as bad as possible. So I threw in the yo to be like, oh, Lona, what the don't do that. Don't ever stop it. Right? I wanted to feel the weight of the side eye from y'all on that, so that I wouldn't be tempted to ever say it again. Listen. We have to be careful, and you know who I'm talking about. We have to be very careful because we can stumble into very bad habits and really look foolish. And so I was making sure that I wasn't ever tempted to say it again. So I was just, I don't want to lose my invitation, and I certainly don't want to lose any of your patronage. Oh, gosh. The side eye was definitely bombastic. I felt the wind gust, right, of the side eye from everyone in chat that, yeah, you guys know what I mean. You go into yo one time too many, and you're going to feel the way of me hitting that stream button. I agree 100%. I had that feeling with the deal was a bad idea, says True SSJ Havoc. Then got something to think I was a pony despite playing mostly PC. Yeah, I don't know if a silver lining of all of this is maybe we can do a little less othering and a little more like discussion and just talking instead of doing the constant othering. Oh, he meant to say gaslit. Right, like, I don't know. If Xbox looks totally different in the next 5 years, maybe we can get into better discussions just about the games themselves and the games that we're enjoying and the games that are bad and the bad actors in the industry, and then promote the good actors. Which is one of the points of my video about refunds. If we could digitally refund games, what that would mean for rewarding good actors and punishing bad actors, right? Like those would be, valiant efforts, from the consumers for consumer protection. Not surprising. That's going to be, I don't think that discussion's going away anytime soon. Like the Stop Killing Games got their signatures, right? So you're going to continue to see people talking about, advocating for consumer protection. I think those are probably better conversations to have than being like, yeah, but you're a pony and our company should have been able to spend this money and blah, blah, blah. Like, I think one of the reasons like I mishandled so much of that is I thought the whole thing was stupid. I had such a disdain for it. I didn't really respect it as a discussion because I thought it was so anti-intellectual. I thought it was so dumb. So and I do obviously have elements that I got to work on with like sounding egotistical and condescending, but full transparency, I thought the whole discussion was just beneath me. I was like, this is so stupid. It's rooted in so much ignorance. It's rooted in so much bad faith and misleading statements. And it's so anti-intellectual. It's so uneducated. Like I felt annoyed just talking about it. So that makes you dismissive. It makes you angry. It makes you emotional. Because do you see what I'm saying? Like you go back and you watch a lot of that coverage, and even now when sometimes this kind of stuff comes up, I can get just flippant and dismissive because I think it's a stupid discussion. I'm like, this is dumb. If you just stick to the facts and you stick to history and you stick to like basic business understanding of how these things typically go, the discussion was dumb. It was a dumb discussion. It wasn't rooted in good faith. It wasn't rooted in business analysis. It wasn't rooted in anything other than tribalistic tendencies. Blue Blur says, why is being a pony such a bad thing? Also, all the worst things to call somebody pony sounds incredibly stupid and uninspired. Well, it represents an idea. So when someone calls you a pony or an X-bot, it represents an idea. It means that you're this sort of mindless drone that doesn't think for themselves, and you're just, everything you say is rooted in that allegiance, right? And so that's why rejecting the notion, like, here's what I've always kind of found interesting about this. There are people who will say out loud, I bleed green. If you cut me, I bleed green. Right? At one level, I have more respect for that than the people who won't admit their bias, because it's truth in advertising, right? If you go and you watch Boomstick, he has been very transparent about the fact that if you cut him, he bleeds green. So that's truth in advertising. You know what you're going to get when you go there. You're going to get sort of like fandom content, right? It's rooted in fandom, okay? Now, personally, I've seen clips and takes from him that I'm like, okay, it seems a little, it seems like you're going beyond just sort of like a bias, right? But I have more respect for somebody who will just say that out loud and own it. I will. It's like, oh, okay. Well, anybody that watches Boomstick knows this homie is diehard fan of Xbox. Okay, I actually have a more respect for that than the people who will essentially like run PR and run damage control and like sort of do some of the astroturfing, and it's more rooted in sort of like opportunism and, you know, maintaining those open doors and those open opportunities. They have a vested interest, right? And a lot of them will say, well, I don't get, no one's paying me to say this, no one's writing a check. That's not the point, right? The point is that you are actively taking part in something that I believe has, been very, very misleading to the public. I think there was a concerted effort the last couple of years to push against, dialogue and talking about Xbox as a brand that would have driven people away from the platform. And you got to wonder, why was there such a concerted effort from one side to run counterpoints to be sort of on the defensive, and then you keep people satiated, and then they stay loyal to the brand and they stay on Game Pass? Like, ask somebody the last couple of years if they felt compelled by that content and some of these podcasts and some of these creators. If they felt compelled to stay loyal to Xbox, ask that person, are you glad that you did that? Do you feel like you got good information? Do you feel like you're glad you stayed loyal? Just ask people. What level of dissatisfaction do you feel with the brand? Do you feel like you were misled at all? I think these are fair questions to ask. Like, that's always been my issue, is consumers can make up their mind when they have more information, which is why I was like heavily critical of how Mind's Eye was marketed. I felt like Mind's Eye attempted to hide things from the public so the public could not make an educated decision about purchasing that game. Do you see? I'm consistent in this. I'm not just calling out one particular thing. It's like, well, I don't feel like you're being consistent. I feel like you're marketing the game in a way that's out of step with how games are typically marketed. It's why I've been heavily critical of simulated gameplay. I don't think simulated gameplay is a good way to market a game. It gives people false impressions about what the game's going to look and run like. And I don't want consumers to be given misleading information. It could be a simulated gameplay trailer. It could be PR puffery. It could be spin, whatever. So that's why some of my passion and my fervor came out in a lot of those streams and a lot of those discussions, because it was like, number one, I saw the entire discussion as being corrupt from the bottom to the top, because there were people in the discussion who had a vested interest in staying in good with the brand because of opportunities that were afforded to them and access that was afforded to them, and they were the ones clouding the waters. They were the ones making it hard to have an honest discussion about it, and many of them weaponized their followings and their platforms to label folks like me like, oh, he's a grifter, he's a pony, he's not trustworthy. So that's understandably frustrating. It's like, you're in here in bad faith. You are absolutely conflict of interest with your connection to the brand. You're absolutely conflict of interest with how much opportunity and how much access that you get. And a lot of these guys were using their podcasts, their platforms, their Twitter accounts to label folks like myself things that were just not accurate. So you're obviously going to get reactionary. You're going to get angry. You're going to get mad. And I did. And I still to this day do get pretty fed up with a lot of it, because it's not rooted in the interest of the public. It's not rooted in an interest of having transparency and having people properly educated. It's brand loyal nonsense. It's astroturfing. It's PR. It's marketing talking points. So that's why I've gotten very critical and passionate about this, because I feel that people should have a lot more. They should take a lot more accountability and responsibility for how much they can persuade or dissuade the public. And your power over the public, I think, should be handled with greater responsibility than people have handled it. And obviously, I get activated when I talk about it because of what happened to me in 2020, right? Almost had my entire livelihood ruined and almost lost my house because of people not taking greater care of how much they can persuade or convince the public of something. That power was not handled responsibly, and the press didn't handle it responsibly. You know, the people that are supposed to cover these situations didn't handle it responsibly. And then I look at now, and I look at these brands, I look at these customers getting angry and feeling betrayal and feeling like they were misled. And it's like, yeah, and all along the way, there were people that were complicit in the plot and like went along with it. And that I think that is worthy of mention and worthy of holding folks accountable. I think that's fair to do. Mash says, for me, I main Xbox this gen, but this is because I pick my main console in a gen and generally stick to that one, and then I pick again next gen, but I am definitely not a fan of the Xbox direction. I could even conceive of people, Mash, who are super loyal to Xbox right now, and they buy the next device, and they're happy with it. Why? Well, they will still be getting, if anything... I mean, this is really going to twist it up a bit. This is really going to kind of make the conversation a little bit more complicated. But what if the silver lining of all of this is that Xbox publishing efforts get improved by this? What if walking into like 2030, Xbox studios are developing for PC and PlayStation primarily, and then Nintendo's like maybe... like a porting afterthought, or if the game will work, maybe they can get, you know, a good team that's good with the dev kit. But maybe it'll help, because if you're no longer developing games for Series S, Series X, PC, and PlayStation, that could potentially help the studios immensely. But that's not going to happen immediately. That's not going to happen immediately. I think with enough time, that could be a silver lining here. That like, well, you're going to shrink the development bandwidth and what's required of a studio, because they're no longer having to develop for an Xbox console or two Xbox consoles. They're just developing for PC and PlayStation. Because your Xbox will be a PC. It'll be a Windows gaming device. So they'll be developing for that, which is they're building a game for Steam, basically. I agree that some may buy an Xbox device and be fine with it, but unlike this gen, the incentive to do that over the PlayStation 6 is almost non-existent. I think that's fair. I think it's a fair thing to say, Mash. With their current employment structure, heck no. And with Microsoft wanting to focus on AI, doubly so. Ashen, those are valid concerns with Xbox's future and their publishing future. I think those are completely valid concerns. I think it's totally valid to say, hey, this doesn't seem like this is gonna mete out a bunch of great games or a bunch of great property. It seems like you guys are going in a direction that will have, you know, an increased, lowered trajectory of quality. Which is why I've always talked about these subjects and games from that perspective. I've always said quality is the single greatest thing. Why? Because let's just look at the subject of refunds and why I feel like it's such an important subject. One of the primary means of gamers feeling like they got a bad deal and they got a raw deal and they would like to get a refund but they can't, one of the primary causes of that is low game quality. Right? You're rarely seeing a groundswell of people that are just like, it's not fun. There are people that will certainly say that. But generally speaking, when there is sort of like a lot of outrage or bad scores or people that are sort of ranting about it or mobilizing about it on the various social platforms, I think most of the time it's because they got a low quality product. Is that fair to say? That the vast majority of refunds on Steam or desired refunds on console, I think the vast majority of the reasoning is, I got a low quality product. That's why I think that's always the primary concern. It's why exclusives should not be demonized. It's why building a game for one platform and then porting it to PC later, I have celebrated that, because everybody who engages in that transaction has a higher probability of getting a good product. That's why from the very beginning of these discussions, I've always couched things in this way, that quality is the most important thing. Because, fun is subjective, length of game is subjective. I don't like what they did with the story. That's all subjective, and game companies are going to have a hard time making everybody happy. But if you deliver a game that is at quality and no one can make gripes about it runs poorly or there's crashes or it looks nothing like the marketing, if they can't lobby any of those complaints, then I believe you've had probably a better transaction, a better value transmission to the consumer. I mean, I've actually had people sort of mock my insistence and my obsessive use of the word quality, but I've always come back to that is, I think, what's most important. Because if we look at the breakout titles, I think it proves me correct. If you look at the breakout titles, the viral titles, the games that end up on multiple platforms later on down the line, you have games that have that narrow scope and focus, and they end up creating a better product, and then they're empowered to port it later. I think there's plenty of examples of this, and I think that displays what I'm talking about, that if you focus primarily on quality. I mean, heck, even Expedition 33 is showing that within multi-plat releases, you can be very, very hyper-fixated on making sure you deliver an amazing game. And here's the thing. There are some quality issues with Expedition 33. They're not glaring, but they're there. But I think when you achieve that level of excellence, you also get this, I don't want to call it a pass, but I think people are just going to be a little bit more gentle and more forgiving when they're like, oh, well, it's such a good game. Yeah, there are some wonky things that are happening. I mean, I'll definitely say that in Death Stranding 2, I've had some weird graphical things like pop in and weird things with shadows, but I'm a lot more forgiving of that because the game is so incredibly good looking and satisfying and I'm enjoying it so much. I'm like, yeah, okay, open world games and lighting systems are just going to sometimes have an issue or two. It's not game breaking. It's not ruining my experience. It's just like, yeah, I kind of wish that didn't happen. It also seems to be isolated to that opening area that my wife played on Saturday. It doesn't seem to be happening once you get to Australia. But I think you're just more forgiving when the level of the game is so high, and you really have to ask the question, is Death Stranding 2 at the level that it is in large part due to only being built for one system and being a collaborative work between Kojima Productions and Guerrilla with Decima? Would that have happened if they were pressured, or the market has this ideal of everything should be multi-plat, and it's like, I don't know if you would get a game like Death Stranding 2 at the quality that it currently is if you pushed for that. I don't think Death Stranding 2 would be in the market right now. It would still be in development. And I don't think that is the primary importance of a game. Kojima doesn't get Decima if it's a multi-plat. Right, you don't build the game in Decima at that point. So, I don't think the primary concern of a game is maximizing reach. I think the primary and the first and most important starting position for a game is to make the absolute best game that they can. If they're able to do that on multiple platforms at once, so be it. It's my observation that the probability of you getting a really good, innovative, high-quality game out of a studio, I think the probability of that increases when they're only building for one platform. That's just my observation. What I'm saying doesn't mean multi-plat games can't be good or that they can't ship at a high quality. I'm saying the probability of the game being really high quality, the probability goes up when you limit the scope and the reach of the game. I think that's a completely fair take. I don't think that's outlandish to be like, well, yeah, you build for one platform, I think you end up with just a higher quality game. Not every time, but I think it increases the likelihood. You're playing a mass game with a lot of moving parts. Guerrilla didn't help with Death Stranding 2. It was made by XDev. I was speaking to the fact that Guerrilla helped Kojima with Decima prior to Death Stranding 2 ever coming out. they helped him with. I believe that they worked together in a collaborative effort on, I believe it was Death Stranding 1, which laid the groundwork for Death Stranding 2. I believe that's what we found in our research on that. I might have misspoken, made it sound like they helped with Death Stranding 2. I think the general idea is there is no Death Stranding in Decima if not for that collaborative effort between Guerrilla and Kojima. Kojima never partners with Guerrilla. The current day Decima never exists, and Death Stranding, Death Stranding 2, Horizon Zero Dawn, and Forbidden West do not exist in their current forms if Death Stranding isn't an exclusive. Those are far-reaching ripple effects that Eugene just outlined that I think are incredibly important to highlight. You know, here's what's really interesting too in this discussion. I want you to look at how much last week people were demonizing greed. They were demonizing greed and saying that greed was the cause of all these problems, all these layoffs. Right? But I feel like a lot of the same people that do that, and I don't think they're wrong in what they're saying about the layoffs being motivated by greed. I think it's an oversimplification. I think it's just platitudinous and pretty empty and vapid. I don't think we're actually communicating by being like, well, this is because of greed. Yes, thank you for that astute and deep analysis of a very complex situation. But I feel like a lot of the times that assessment is coming from folks who will also turn around and say, well, when you put games in more places, you make more money. So is that the primary motivation? I thought greed was bad. If greed is bad, then your starting position, your opening sort of axiom about game design should not be focused on, well, let's make this playable by everybody. We want to make as much money as possible. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, that doesn't feel consistent. It's like if greed is such a problem, then I wouldn't make your starting tenet of game design, well, we're going to get as many people playing as possible. We're focused on making as much money as possible. That feels very much motivated by greed. Not that that's wrong or bad. You should, and I've argued this, you should want companies to make as much money as possible on their game, because that means you're more likely to then get games from that studio. Like, I want a game company that makes a game that I enjoy, like Ghosts of Yote. I want that game to make buckets of cash so that, you know, Sucker Punch is empowered to maybe grow or expand or hire new people or just bring in new tech, new research for the next game, get bigger name actors, whatever. I want them to make a ton of money. I think the us versus them narrative will die in about a year. I think it's great right now. It's a good way to make money on YouTube. You demonize AAA, you demonize the industry, you weaponize every good thing that happens, you use it as a weapon against big studios and big companies. You've created this boogeyman, us versus them narrative. I think that narrative dies in the next year because I don't think you can sustain that. I don't think you can sustain the idea that, like, gaming is dying, AAA gaming is cooked, and all these companies suck. And it's like, I don't think you can maintain that. There's too many games coming that will make that hard to maintain. Thank you, Just Pones, for 12 months. Jumping back in. It's now 112 to 34. And we are at 162. Nice strong start to the week. Thank you so much. Oh, you guys are still discussing Decima. To maximize reach and get this is a good question from Shadow. It says, wait, if the next Xbox has Steam, why do they need Helldivers port? To maximize reach and get Xbox refugees who are leaving Xbox. That's the current theory, is, you know what I mean? To get as many people exposed to PlayStation content as possible before sort of the traditional console ends. This guy says, so much cope in this video, It wasn't Sony who decided to make the Sony game multiplot. Xbox made them do it. Calling something cope and then completely misrepresenting it is so ironically a form of cope. I can't help but laugh. Calling something cope and then misrepresenting what I said is like, it's so ironically a high form of cope. It's like, you're not even engaging with what I said. You know that what I said disrupts the entire narrative. I didn't say Xbox made them do it. I said Xbox initiated the discussion, which means this was not born in a meeting with PlayStation where PlayStation on their own was like, let's change our strategy. It was a negotiation that Xbox initiated, which completely changes your view of it. Like if somebody went to Nintendo and negotiated that a Nintendo game should come to PC, and like I don't know, like Splatoon or something, that would not mark a change at Nintendo. You'd be like, well, Nintendo didn't decide to do it. You'd be like, well, there was a negotiation that was initiated by another platform. I think that's incredibly important. Like, misrepresenting what I said in order to like gloss over the fact that it's actually pretty significant that Xbox initiated the discussion. That is so ironically actually a form of copium. It's like, you actually know that what I'm saying is true. That Xbox has changed so significantly this gen. That's the driving factor of this. And instead of just admitting that, I'm going to be honest with you. The people that are like, yep, full slate, PlayStation's third party, and like they think that like that's going to like upset me or other people. I watch those people do that, and like they've typed in my comments. Some of the people were replying to some of my tweets about it. And I'm like, I wish you could see how embarrassing you are. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I wish they could see it. It's like, it's embarrassing to share space with you guys. I really wish a lot of these guys would leave the gaming conversation. Because it's embarrassing. It's so boyish and childish. It's like basic analysis of a decision to bring a game to a platform that is so fundamentally evolved in the back half of the gen, where they've marked a pretty sharp exodus from traditional consoles. Like, just doing like a basic analysis of that and like why that's not worrying and why that's not a threat. And they call it cope. See, I think this is the problem with othering. You always have an insult. So if I basically look at it and I'm like, I don't see really any cause for alarm, they're like, haha, look at the pony coping and copium. Look at the pony copium. Look at the pony coping. Okay, so because you've decided I'm some weird othering name, on the internet, like an immature 12-year-old. These are grown men typing these comments, by the way. These aren't kids. So because you've determined that, I'm coping. Now, if I would have made a video and argued that this was a betrayal and that this was the beginning of the end and that PlayStation was going third party, they would leave the same comment and they would simply change one word. Look at this raging pony. Do you see? Like, that's the problem with othering, is you're basically not communicating. You're not having a conversation. You're literally an NPC. You're just saying a canned, predictable response. You're just changing the words depending on the response. If somebody's angry or upset about this, they're a seething, malding pony. If they're like, this doesn't seem like that big of a deal, I don't see any evidence that PlayStation's changing, they're a coping pony. You're not saying anything. You are pulling from a dialogue library of, I've got two responses. You're either a seething malding pony or you're a coping pony. Like, that's all they've got. Rattling around in their brain. That's all they can do. And it's just like, if you stop for 2 seconds and just had conversations with people, you'd probably enjoy your day more. You'd make friends. You'd have a good time. But you're just committed to othering. Well, you're a this, so I'm just going to say this to you. And it's like, okay, if it makes you feel better to say someone's coping, if it makes you feel better to say someone's seething and molding, I mean, I guess, like, if your life is empty enough that fills it up, then I guess I don't know why anybody would really care. Like I said, it's just like embarrassing. Like it's such a self-report. It's like, well, your life must be pretty empty if this is an activity that fills it up. Do you see? I don't know. Like, I was just looking at the responses, and it just kind of hit me. It was like, it doesn't really matter how you respond. They have their canned responses that they're just going to type and hurl at you because they're kind of just stuck in that. They're just, it's like they're stuck in a trap where it's like a flow chart with like 2 roads, and that's all they've got. It's like, okay. I'd love to have a conversation with you. Like, just come hang out. Like, excuse me. I don't know. You guys are still debating Decima, which I don't really care to debate. Hang on. Oh, here's a question. I wanted to make sure I hadn't already read this from your Marvel rivals. Do you believe that the price point for these future Xbox brand boxes or hybrids will be a determining factor for current Xbox enjoyers to move over to PlayStation? I think that'll play a factor for sure. So I want you to imagine, let's just say it's split right down the middle. There's 30 million people that own a Series X. I'm sorry, or S. There's 30 million people that are in the Series console funnel. And let's just split it down the middle, because we don't know the numbers. People have said that the Series S has sold more. I think that's also because they made more of them. That was sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Like, well, they're making more of them, so of course they sold more of them. Okay, so, but let's just say, for the sake of the discussion, to make it really, really easy to visualize and think about, that there are 15 million people on the Series S and 15 on the Series X, okay? What are you guys, who are you guys talking about? Is somebody in chat? Hang on, I just want to make sure nobody's in chat, like, bashing a creator. Because you're saying, stop defending that dude. It's pretty well known. Who are you guys talking about? Who are you talking about as a single? Who are you talking about? Don't be in here running nonsense about other creators. Don't be doing that. Anyways, I'm talking about John Linneman. He's pretty known to be biased. Hang on. Look at that. It's remarkable. You just showed up today. This is your first time ever talking in my chat? It's interesting. So the premise and the claim is that John Linneman is biased, okay? I'm going to give you the opportunity to supply evidence of said claim. If that evidence is not supplied, your time here is done. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? I don't have any interest in people like you coming in here and mentioning somebody's name and making claims about them. So you have the stage. Establish with evidence that he has a clear bias. If you fail to do this, you will be banned, because I have zero tolerance for people like you. A gray name, never been here before, just shows up randomly, running some dialogue about another creator. Well, take your shot, big guy. Let's see what you got about John Linneman being biased. Thank you, CB4 Omega, for 44 months. This is my first time. Have a good day. Your first time what? 44 months, man. 163. Yo, thank you, CB4 Omega, for 28 months on Purple as well. He stated Xbox didn't exist in the gaming industry. He stated that Xbox didn't exist in the gaming industry. What was the context of him saying that? There was a time where they didn't. Was he referring to that time? Oh, shouldn't? Okay, that's his opinion. I share that opinion. Many people have come to that conclusion. Many people have come to that conclusion. Do you think he came to that conclusion because of an anti-Xbox bias or because he's assessed their contribution the last 2 gens to gaming? The irony typically in these situations is you betrayed your own bias. Someone expressing their opinion that, yeah, they just shouldn't be in gaming. You know what's funny about Xbox shouldn't be in the gaming industry? Bobby Kotick told them the same thing. Do you think Bobby Kotick had some weird anti-Xbox bias axe to grind? Or was he a ruthless CEO who understood what it takes to survive in the gaming industry and he was like, you guys shouldn't be in the gaming industry? You see, like, this is why I immediately gut check this kind of stuff. It's like, well, yeah, I'm going to dismiss what Linneman said because he's got a bias. Okay, what's his bias? Oh, well, he said Microsoft shouldn't be in the gaming industry. Yeah, a lot of people frickin' think that. And it's not from some weird anti-Xbox bias. It's an assessment of what they've done. I don't know where he got that from. I'm biased as well, just like you. Okay, so is your argument, I'm asking for qualifications here. Is your argument that we should dismiss what someone says because they're biased? Is that your argument? Is that what you were saying about Linneman? We should dismiss what he says because he's biased. Was that what you were saying? If that's not what you were saying, what was the point of invoking bias? Let's make this productive. I want you to think about what you have said and what you have claimed. Let's make this a productive experience and not just like call each other names. So what's your position? What was the point of invoking a bias, that he has a bias? I'm a former Xbox main, says English O, and I don't think Microsoft, as it is now, should be in the gaming industry. No, I'm not saying to dismiss his opinion because he is biased. Okay. So, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull chat history and just see what you were saying then, because I want to fully understand what you're saying here. You say, as expected from John Linneman, just because he supported an acquisition doesn't mean he isn't anti-Xbox. It's the same guy who wished Xbox didn't exist. I'm not talking about Digital Foundry as a whole. I'm talking about a single game. Okay, so when you say as expected from Linneman, that's dismissive language. You're acting as though we can disregard what he's saying because he has a bias. You're claiming that he has an anti-Xbox bias. Your evidence of his anti-Xbox bias is him saying he doesn't think Microsoft should be in gaming, which is a conclusion that many people have come to. So the problem with your invocation of the word bias is something that you would have to claim is there beforehand and is disrupting judgment. And the only way you would be able to establish that is a pattern of behavior from him where his pre-commitments to being against Xbox affected his coverage of things. I believe confidently that claim is false and that Linneman has never had a visible or measurable Xbox bias, not even remotely to the degree that it disrupts his coverage. You're arguing something is there before the coverage. I'm saying I've never seen any evidence of that with him. And secondly, somebody coming to a conclusion is not bias. I was Xbox 360, I was Xbox One, and this gen, I've been heavily critical of them, and I am now in full agreement. They are bad for gaming. They should get the frick out. I don't like Microsoft's presence in the gaming world, looking at what they have done and how they have carried themselves. That's a conclusion. That's not a bias. People don't understand the word bias. I have a bias for my daughter. It's there before anything happens. So there are situations where I have to be careful that my bias doesn't disrupt my judgment. Like, let's say when I'm coaching the team, her soccer team, I can't let my prior commitment and love for her disrupt my judgment because it's just there beforehand, okay? If I assess the team's skill and I conclude she's better at defense, that's something that comes after observation and doesn't come from before. So that's what I'm saying. You using the word bias doesn't really make any sense here, because you would have to establish a pattern of behavior where somebody's prior commitment to not liking Xbox disrupts and corrupts their coverage. It sounds to me like Linneman has come to a conclusion that many of us have come to, which is not based on bias. It's based on just observing what's been going on. Do you think that Microsoft has been good for gaming? Do you think what they've been doing is great? Do you think buying $80 billion worth of property in studios and shrinking the market, removing studios, removing games, removing consumer choice, do you think they've been a positive impact on gaming? If he's wrong, then argue that he's wrong. Argue that Xbox has been great for gaming. And don't give me your pro-consumer platitudinous nonsense about Game Pass. Happy Bungie Day. Happy Bungie Day, everybody. Bias implies unsaid. If the speaker is clear about their views, then it's not bias, it's context. Right. Thank you for a single gifted Stone Spire. Stone Spire's trying to bump the line to get a 10 bomb to come in, and Blind Darkness with 2 months comes in and bumps it to 166. Whoever drops the 10 bomb gets it. I will give your platform 5 members. Purple, this is your chance to steal. These are the easiest ones to steal. They're easier than the 5 bombs to steal. That Happy Bungie Day made water come out my nose. I want to say a real personal Happy Bungie Day to Luke Smith and Chris Barrett. I hope they're having a great day. I like the push they are making with Play Anywhere. Okay. You supplied evidence, so you get to stay. I find your evidence to be very not compelling at all. So, at least you had an example. I don't find your example to be compelling. Right? I do not want people coming in here and blasting other creators. I don't want you doing that. You can say, he said this, I disagree with what he said. If you would have said, Linneman says that Xbox and Microsoft shouldn't be in gaming, and I don't agree with him, I think Xbox is making great strides, and I really like Play Anywhere, that is fair to say. If you want to quote me or Mag or Colt Eastwood or Brap or King Thrash, I don't care who you're quoting, just disagree with them. Don't attack them. You can say, Colt said this, and I agree, or I don't agree. That's totally fine. But don't come in here and talk crap about the man. That's not productive. I don't allow that. I gut checked that really quickly. I'm like, don't do that. People do that to me all day long, and I don't allow for it here. I don't. We hold chat to a standard where that's not allowed. If it slips by, the mods are supposed to also reprimand it, and the community members also typically reprimand it and say, hey, don't do that. Play Anywhere is great. I can play on my Xbox and then pick up my laptop when I'm traveling. It's good. I don't think Play Anywhere is a strong enough... I don't think it's a strong enough win for it to counteract all the bad they've done. What they've done to Halo, what they've done to their studios, what they've done with games that were supposed to be coming to the market, what they've done with games. I don't think Play Anywhere overrides any of that. I'm glad you don't read my... Well, and don't do that, because, again, I don't like it. And number two, like I said, like, I think Asmongold is a great example of someone who has been, in many cases, very much misrepresented instead of people just disagreeing with him. I think it'd be far more productive and healthy to just disagree with things he has said, as opposed to people call him names and call him all these terrible things. And it's like, okay, number one, you're just feeding him content. I don't think you really understand the game that he's able to play with you. He's able to play with you like it's like he's playing with his food. He monetizes their rage, so that's unproductive. It's also unproductive because, like, if somebody says something that is wrong or incorrect or can be disagreed with, then do that. Just disagree with what they're saying. Like, I've disagreed with some of his takes, but I've agreed with some of his takes. Like, recently, I think his coverage of the layoffs has been pretty poor. I don't think it's been in the lane of, like, I find sometimes him to be very thoughtful, and he understands certain business elements and is very good at, analyzing certain things from a business perspective. And his analysis of, like, the Xbox layoffs, I think, has been very, very lacking. I think a lot of that's just because if you've not really tracked the degradation of that platform and, like, how they treated 343, for an example. Like, what I think would be great for him to do, which he doesn't have to do this, but I think it would make for great content, is, like, his remarks about 343, like, they should be shut down and they should be at McDonald's. I think he should go and read Jason Schreier's autopsy on Halo Infinite and 343 and look at how Microsoft treated 343. I would really be curious what he thinks as to why there's a pattern of poor performance, poor delivery from Xbox Studios. Like, you see what I'm saying? Instead of being like, well, they suck, why are they still open? They suck, they're bad, they should be fired. Instead of just jumping to that, which is an easy thing to do. Many of the Xbox fans have said that. They're like, oh, it's all 343. It's all on 343. It's their fault. It's their fault. It's their fault. Like, yeah, they've delivered 3 bad games in a row, and no one looks at Xbox as being in the room as a factor at all, right? Like, Microsoft is, as I've said, Microsoft's the devil in the room. So, like, I think his analysis would be better served if he did that. That's just my opinion on the coverage of the layoffs. I think it's easy to be like, there are people doing that in my comments right now. They're like, well, the games were obviously going to suck or be bad, or they weren't going to come out. So we're just going to ignore the fact that Everwild was progressing nicely according to Phil Spencer. We're going to ignore the fact that internally people were saying the ZeniMax MMO was receiving high praise. We're going to ignore all that? Like, huh? Romero's game didn't even see the light of day. Romero's studio just gets shut down after literally 24 hours before having a conversation with Xbox that seemed promising. So when you just are like, well, the games probably sucked and they couldn't get them to market, so it's the devs' fault. It's like, that's just so superficial. That analysis is just so reductionist. It's like there's so many more moving parts to what's going on here. And this is where I do agree with Asmongold. This is just the beginning. It's going to get worse. There are far more layoffs and shutdowns coming. And I don't think it's because the lead protagonist for Perfect Dark had a big jaw. I don't think that analysis gets even beneath the surface of the eggshell into analysis here. Like, you're just barely scraping the surface. It's likely more of middle management. There's no way to know that. And how can you say that when you got half a studio? What is this? Hang on. Yes. Okay. I lost my train of thought. Sorry, I got an email from YouTube. Oh, middle management. Oh, yeah. Sorry. Middle management. How could you possibly know that? I have it on very good authority from someone in the know that people didn't even know who was being laid off. They weren't doing assessments of people. They weren't doing assessments of, like, who's bad, who's good, who sucks, right? Like, when he was like, let's get all these middle management Karens and HR people out of here. They didn't even know who was being laid off. They were managers that were like, I didn't even know who was going to get laid off. They just came in and just threshing floored the company. They didn't send the Bobs to be like, what exactly do you do here? And determine that, like, yeah, you're just a middle management Karen, get out. That's not what happened. This was absolutely dispassionate and non-analytical. They just got rid of people. and managers didn't even know who was being let go. It was like a sweeping machete. You're giving Microsoft way too much credit. What do you mean threat? Xbox keeping your lights on? Sure they are. It was Xbox, not Sony. Your source is hilarious. Is it hard to believe Xbox initiated the convo after what Phil said about Helldivers 2 not being on Xbox? Y'all are really hurting. Y'all are hurting. I don't think it's that hard to believe that after what Phil Spencer said, that Xbox would have initiated a conversation with PlayStation about Helldivers 2 coming to Xbox. So, let me get this straight. Let's just do analysis here of how thoughtful this person is. So, Phil Spencer expresses, annoyance with the fact that, Helldivers, I don't know who it helps that Helldivers is not on Xbox. So he says that publicly, and Arrowhead expresses interest in being on Xbox on multiple occasions. So we've got Xbox expressing some level of interest or irritation with the fact that Helldivers 2 is not on Xbox. You've got Xbox people saying it'd be great if it was over. I've been in support of it being on Xbox since the beginning. And then you have Arrowhead expressing the interest. But we're supposed to believe that it was Sony that decided to be like, hey, I've got an idea. We're going to do something completely contrary to all of our strategy up to this point and everything that we signaled to shareholders and everything that we've signaled to the public. We just did interviews about this, by the way. We're going to do something completely contrary to that, just out of the blue, out of nowhere. It just stands to reason, if you just apply basic logic and deductive reasoning here, that Phil Spencer seemed to express interest publicly, Arrowhead expressed interest publicly, so the initiation of this didn't come from PlayStation. I tell you what, call it copium. I don't care to debate things like this with people that want to use words like that. It's just okay, 2 + 2 = 5. Good for you. We're not going to belabor the point. It's willful stupidity. I just don't want to engage with it. Pan says, did you learn if PSSR is being replaced by FSR4? We have not had time to look into that. At first blush, it seems like they are replacing PSSR with the algorithm from FSR4, but FSR4 was also impacted by PSSR. So I'm not sure exactly what Mark Cerny meant when he said what he said. So it seemed to me, from his one interview, that PSSR informed and helped in Project Amethyst, and the first evidence of their collaborative work in Project Amethyst was FSR4, and it was highly praised. And I argued at the time that was going to kick back. It was like a tennis ball, basically, getting batted back and forth. The benefits of FSR4 was going to kick back and benefit PSSR, and that PSSR would be updated in the future. And Mark Cerny seemed to indicate that in the one interview. Now he has said that it will essentially work as a replacement, like it's going to come over. I mean, he used the dadgum words, replacement. I forget the exact phrasing that he used, but he did in fact say it. I'm trying to see where I found. I saved articles about this. Hang on. Where are they? According to a conversation I recently had with Mark Cerny, so this is coming from Tom's Guide. I'm going to get this nice and zoomed in for y'all. I don't know how else to read this. According to a conversation I recently had with Cerny, the new tech, quote, is a drop-in replacement for the current PSSR that should be straightforward for developers to accommodate when it arrives on PS5 Pro consoles in 2026. Now, they're saying the new tech, okay? So, let's go up. Cerny has said the company is working on implementing an advanced graphics upscaling algorithm for PS5 Pro that should deliver better performance than its existing PSSR upscaling tech. Okay, so the upscaling tech, this is the antecedent to new tech. So new tech is referring back to this. So it sounds to me like PSSR is not being replaced. The upscaling tech of it will be, is a drop-in replacement for the current PSSR. So as far as I understand it, they're going to keep calling it PSSR, but they're doing a drop-in replacement of the upscaling. The algorithm that this advancement that they've made is basically coming to PSSR. That's how I understand it. So it is a replacement, but they're not going to be going and saying PS5 Pro no longer has PSSR. PS5 Pro now has FSR4. That is not what I'm reading there. I'm reading the algorithm itself is upgrading the upscaling tech specifically. It will continue to be called PSSR. They are not bringing FSR4 just over the whole kit and caboodle. They're not doing that. It's a collaborative effort. So PSSR will continue to improve under that banner. FSR will continue to improve under that banner. The algorithmic advancements they're making are going to improve both. Yo, it's good, Happy Cloud Gamer. You've said a couple things. Hang on, let me look at what some of them we're saying. So big temp companies always trim the fat. So why is it always worse when Microsoft does it? You need to have control over who they pay money for work. I think your summary of this is not something I want to engage with. All tech companies trim the fat, okay? If you think that Microsoft shuttering studios, canceling games, and like meeting with Romero and then the next day telling him all of his funding's gone and the studio's gone, and there were managers within the structure that didn't even know who was being laid off, if you want to describe that as trim the fat, I have no desire to discuss this with you. I'm just going to get angry and insult you because that feels like the appropriate response. Yeah, that's just so superficial and not even remotely looking at what happened. Well, all tech companies trim the fat. Okay, cool. Hopefully it never happens to you, and I guess you're okay with getting less stuff. They're just trimming the fat, guys. Perfect Image. Nix's Studios is helping to port over Helldivers. Is that studio giving good quality? Yeah, Nix's is very good at ports. No, I think Satya of Microsoft wants more money. Huh? I don't know. Nobody's saying it's worse when Microsoft does it. There is a unique... Okay, the fact that I have to explain this is boggling to me. This boggles my dadgum mind. Okay, it's uniquely frustrating. It's uniquely frustrating for Xbox to procure $80 billion worth of studios and content. And the most that they've done since then is shutter studios and cancel projects. It's not additive, it's subtractive. Had they not made these purchases, Microsoft would have had to trim the fat somewhere else for their AI endeavors. It's uniquely frustrating to be like, you spent all this money to acquire all this property and all these studios just to then make them collateral damage in your efforts with AI. That's why it's frustrating. Why is it worse when Microsoft does it? Because they're coming into our turf and they're messing with the studios and the games that many of us were looking forward to. That's why it's quote unquote worse. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's uniquely frustrating to watch the ABK deal and watch all this stuff happen, and then to be like, oh yeah, and our reward for all of this is less studios and content. What? Yay! I agree with you. ABK was a stupid move. I don't understand your point then. Like, if a tech company that specializes in speakers downsizes, I don't have a vested interest in that conversation. You're not going to hear me ranting and raving if like JBL does some downsizing. That's not an industry that I comment on. I'm not well versed in anything going on over there. We watched people, tweet at Lena Khan and call Laura Fryer's, qualifications into question. And they attacked content creators and people like myself. And for what? For what? You could all go out here and shake your pom-poms and your tail feathers so that, you know, yeah, this is going to be great. They're going to buy ABK. And then in the waning hours of it, we're like, oh, yeah, well, you know, we shouldn't really talk about this. It's all about empathy. And, well, why is it worse when Microsoft does it? Everybody trims the fat. What the, huh? The facts are the facts. The facts are the facts. There were a bunch of us that said what this level of acquisition would lead to, and there were people who cheered for it and people who did not represent the situation accurately. They've consistently displayed a commitment to running PR for Microsoft. And after this happens, some of these same people want to act like that we shouldn't talk about this. We shouldn't be receipt pulling and holding people accountable because they want to hide behind the layoffs and the emotion of the layoffs. So it's like, and then, or we're going to do this hand waving thing that people have been doing in my comments, and they're saying that like, oh, but everybody does this, and these studios probably sucked, and these games must have sucked. And it's just like, okay, I fine then. Who cares then? Shut down every studio and cancel every game that's not out right now, because apparently you can just presume that those games were bad and weren't going to do a good job. Like, where's the deductive reasoning? Where's the investigative prowess? Why doesn't anybody want to look into what's actually been going on or the patterns at the company? You know what I mean? Nobody wants to do that. You just want to jump to the conclusion that, well, the games were bad, the studios were bad. Listen, I've said this for a very long time. I think a lot of the super Xbox loyal guys should just get a tattoo that says blame the devs. Because that's all you guys do. A lot of you hardcore Xbox guys, that's all you do. It's always blame the devs. Just get it tattooed on your arm. Hashtag blame the devs. Games come to Xbox late because of the Series S, blame the devs. Game comes out, all sorts of weird problems, ignore the autopsy from someone like Schreier who pinpoints what happened with Halo Infinite and 343, blame the devs. Games get canceled, games get shuttered, studios shut down, blame the devs. Do it. Make it a part of your identity. Do it. I'm a big-time Xbox fan. I love Xbox through and through, all the way to the dadgum grave. I will blame the devs for everything that happens. It's never Phil's fault. It's never Sarah Bond's fault. It's never Microsoft's fault. It's nobody's fault. It's always the devs' fault. Blame the devs. It's the devs' fault. They should have worked harder or better to get games to work well on the Series S. Hashtag blame the devs. I said this entire gen, if you guys keep doing that, you're going to make your platform very, very radioactive. Who the frick wants to make games for a platform where the leader, Phil himself, will passively blame Larian, or a Microsoft spokesperson will passively allow some nonsense bullcrap about a secret exclusivity deal with Black Myth Wukong? And now here we sit. These games getting canceled, these studios getting shut down. Well, blame the devs. Bold strategy. Let's see how it pays off for you. It'll probably pay off as good as the ABK deal. So, look at you go. Just keep going. Blame the devs. Do it. I mean, you guys have done, I mean, these folks, they're too loyal. You've done such a bang-up job already cheering for an acquisition. I mean, just keep going. Go full. Yeah, I'm not even going to put that on the screen. Somebody attacking the guy from Larian, telling him that his game wasn't even that good. I recently had a third child. I blame the devs. Yeah, anything bad happens in life. Instead of thanks Obama, just blame the devs. Hashtag blame the devs. Do it. All right, I'm going to put a link in chat. If you guys haven't watched the video from today yet, that's a link to the video. about how Xbox is not a threat, go give that a watch, a like, and a comment. I'm going to take a real quick break, okay? I'm going to take a real quick break. Watch that video. It's up on the channel. It's right here, all right? What is... Man, Chrome is just a disaster lately. Yeah. All right, I'll be right back. Actually, we're going to hit ads on both platforms as well, so you're not missing anything. Go watch the video. I'll be right back. Okay. What would you like to see more of at Insider Gaming? Somebody said underwater pics. That can be arranged. I'm in. Stupid. We don't see eye to eye and everything, but I truly respect your opinions. Yeah, and the reason I was being dismissive with what you said is the way that people talk about layoffs, they either act like there's been 3 responses to the layoffs that drives me crazy, right? I find this one to be the cowardly one. Well, we're just supposed to have empathy, so we're not allowed to talk about anything. We're not allowed to be critical of the deal of Microsoft. We're not allowed to hold people accountable who cheered for the deal. We're not allowed to hold people accountable who acted like this deal was going to be good for the employees, right? So let's just be empathetic, which is, to me, just a flaccid nothing response. The other response is to just blame the devs. Well, they probably deserved it. The games probably sucked. And then the third response is to just be like, well, these things happen. Everybody's doing layoffs. So just like a shrug shoulder. I find those responses to layoffs of this degree and studio closures of this degree and canceling projects to this degree, I find all three of those responses to be incredibly lacking. It's like, what good are you? Like, what good are you if you've got a platform and a voice and something like this happens and that's the way you're going to respond? You're either going to blame the devs, act like it's no big deal, or just do this very, like, flaccid response of, like, well, let's just be empathetic and not really talk about holding anybody accountable or being critical of it. It's just like, okay, like, I think all of those three responses are weak. It doesn't say underwater. Oh, it says underwear pics. Now I understand why Fuzzy was saying, please let it happen. Like, in 18 months, they've done 4 rounds of layoffs in 18 months. Like, at what point are you going to stiffen your spine a little bit and say what needs to be said and be more bold instead of doing any of the 3 responses I just outlined? Cause for alarm or concern, they're just games. Pretty pathetic response. Consumers make choices and spend money based on these types of things, and many feel they wasted money on Xbox this gen. And I recognize this photo. Like, this guy's always commenting, and he's like super, like, very, very much like big time on like the Xbox side of things. So it's like, oh, cause for concern, these are just games. Brother, there are so many people that feel like they chose wrong this gen. These are consumers that felt like they got misled. You can't be like, they're just games. Like, this is how people make their decisions. They make assessments based on what the market is doing and what the companies are doing and what the companies are promising. You can't be like, well, they're just games. Who cares? What? Huh? That's pathetic. What do you mean? If right now you're trying to decide where to spend your money, where you want to invest, what do you want to do? Do you want to build like a really strong PC? Do you want to buy a PlayStation? Do you want to buy a Nintendo? Do you want to buy an Xbox? You can't be like, well, they're just games. It's no big deal. Isn't this from like? And again, I don't have his entire history on my channel commenting, but it's like, aren't you the type that would typically act like, well, Xbox is pro-consumer because they had the Series S and Game Pass and allowed for people to like make gaming more affordable? Like, wait a minute, I don't understand. If you're concerned about consumers being able to access games and, you know, whether it's gaming anywhere or any of the other things that Xbox has done that people claim is like, you know, pro-consumer or whatever, like, wouldn't you be in full support of people being sort of warned if a company is changing direction or breaking promises or evolving or changing their approach in a way that would feel like broken trust to the consumer? Don't you think that's an important thing to highlight? Fable must be pretty close to being canceled due to the abysmal showing and reception so far. So here's what I think is going to happen. I think there's going to be a second wave. This is just a prediction that I'm making, just based off of what we've heard from Sneaker and other people that are reliable. Okay, I think there will be a second wave, and the second wave is essentially going to be, hey, you couldn't get your game into a pipeline or a schedule or a deliverable schedule that would allow us to ship the game on Xbox, PC, and PlayStation. You're done too. That's what I think the second wave is going to be, sadly. I think right now, from what we're hearing, if they can't meet these deadlines, if they can't get these games out, whether they leverage AI or their limited resources or their limited employees. So I think what's going to happen is the fallout from this is going to be felt for years. For years. You're going to have games either show up and they'll be at pretty poor quality because they forced the game out. I think you're going to have some Redfalls in the mix. I also then think you're going to have games that don't even make it. They're going to get canceled. Studios are going to get shut down. I think there's going to be a second wave. Yeah, like Contraband's trailer was set to private. That's another game that's probably in jeopardy right now. Here's hoping they sell Studios. But they didn't sell Tango. Tango shut down and then somebody swooped in and saved the day. It wasn't like they sold them. This is not my opinion, but a neutral question. Do you think most people go on a witch hunt if it's Xbox versus Nintendo and PlayStation? I don't understand the framing of the question. Ninja Theory's probably the next one. I mean, look what they did to Tango. I mean, look what they did. Like, Hi-Fi Rush hits PlayStation, and then Studio goes bye-bye. You know, Hellblade comes over to PlayStation, and then Studio goes bye-bye. I mean, that's certainly within the realm of possibility. Yeah, what's good, Liquid? How are you? Everwild costs $480 million. I don't know where you're getting your information. That can't possibly be true. There's no way. The operating costs at Rare, whatever team was working on Everwild, there's no way they hit $480 million. That's absurd. That's higher than Spider-Man. That doesn't seem possible. OD was already cut? No, that we've heard it's still the contract's still good. You meant to say Perfect Dark? There's no way Perfect Dark costs $480 million. There's no way Perfect Dark costs that much. That doesn't make any sense. What in the world were they spending the money on? Yeah, I think State of Decay 3, if I were a betting man, I wouldn't be surprised if State of Decay 3 gets killed. Yeah. It's been too long. If you've taken too long, you are on the chopping block. You are. Look at the standards they've used with like Perfect Dark and Everwild as examples. It just took too long. They canceled an MMO that was getting good response internally. 7 years in development, inflation costs, output costs. Here's what I typically am going to be prone to not believe. People on Twitter and YouTube just like shooting from the cuff on like this game costs this much. We've been here before with Concord. I don't buy it. I think people throw out numbers and it becomes canon, and I don't see any reason to think that any of those games cost almost half a billion. I'm sorry, half a billion dollars. I just find it incredibly hard to believe. They came and showed a fake build for Perfect Dark. Apparently it wasn't fake, but as I said, it's funny too because I've always called it simulated gameplay. And then if you read the description from the guy that worked at the company about like what they showed, I was like, oh, so it was simulated gameplay. It basically wasn't genuine. It was very scripted. It was very much like quote unquote in-engine. So it was simulated gameplay. Like, I've used that phrase for a very long time because I don't believe they put together that like and it's something that is completely fake and fabricated, but it might as well be. It might as well be. To me, it's analogous to just showing fake gameplay. It's like it's simulated. It's so, and it's such a small slice, like the guy said, like a vertical slice or whatever. It's like there's no way that's going to be representative of the final product. We've been here so many dadgum times. Division 1, Watch Dogs, the very first trailer for Star Wars Outlaws. Like, how many times have we been here where it's like it's simulated? It's such a small slice and such a misrepresentation of the final product. So I think using the word simulated is the exact right word to use. And when you read how the guy describes how they built the Perfect Dark trailer, it's like, oh yeah, so basically you might as well call it fake. Like, it's not fake, but it's about as close to being fake as fake gets. The Perfect Dark Slice was so narrow it was basically a skit. You couldn't deviate at all. Right, that's what I mean. That's why I feel like it's fake. I mean, I don't say the word fake because then you get into that quagmire of like, you know, the day before was fake. This is not fake. And it's like, okay, let me ask you something. If it's such a small slice of the game that it could not possibly represent the final product because it is nothing more than this teeny small slice and it's super scripted. It's basically just an engine demo. Yeah, exactly. Like, a lot of the criticism that was lobbied against CD Projekt Red with the Witcher thing that they showed, you should have the same exact attitude when somebody does simulated gameplay like that. And then everyone's like, no, that was gameplay. And then the guy comes out and tells you how they built it. And you're like, so it wasn't real. Like, it was so not a real representation of a game. Was the game dev that high? No. Could all the studio costs and everything necessary be up there? Yes. Yeah, when he took back what he said about Everwild, because I'm like, it doesn't make sense with Everwild because most of the studio was not working on Everwild. They were working on Sea of Thieves, I would imagine, over the years. But Perfect Dark, I mean, I could see it costing a ton of money because I guess there were reboots and people that quit, and then you got to onboard and hire new talent and stuff. Like, I don't know. 8 years, 2 different studios. Yeah, I mean, I suppose it could be high. GTA 6 is playing to skip Xbox and Game Pass. Well, we know they won't put it on Game Pass because Strauss Zelnick is publicly against putting games on Game Pass day and date. He has said that on numerous occasions. I don't think we've had any indication of them skipping Xbox. He took a question during an earnings call about that. People are still bringing up how Sony shut down Concord and Firewalk, but Xbox is quote-unquote trimming the fat, and everything's fine. Sure, it was real in the sense that what they showed existed, but not as in actually how the game would have looked or played. Yeah, it's almost like when they build like a set and it looks like they're in a house, but if you pan the camera around, you're going to see the edges of the frame. You're going to see the studio lights. You're going to see the production crew. You're going to see the live studio audience. And you're like, oh, it's real. Like, Will Smith was really standing in what looked like a living room, but it also wasn't real. It's like when you do that level of a vertical slice and simulate gameplay to that degree, it's like saying that the house in The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air was real. It's like, well, yeah, it was, but it also wasn't. If you pan the camera outside the frame, you suddenly see how not real it is. So a super simulated, super narrow slice trailer. Listen, this is what kills me in these discussions. Nobody should be defending that. Nobody. If you're a super hardcore Xbox fan, you should not be defending that. You should never, ever give studios and Xbox or anybody a pass when they do this kind of nonsense. We've been here for too long. We've been doing this for too long to accept such misleading marketing. It's not honest. They did it with Fable. They've done it with State of Decay. They did it with Perfect Dark. Stop accepting it and stop defending it. It's in your interest to be like, we don't want trailers like that. Either show me gameplay or show me cinematics. Don't do this weird hybrid in between where I can't tell what the frick's real and what's not. Knock it off. Either market the product or don't. Quit doing this mirage of like, was it gameplay or was it not? We don't know. And we'll put little text down at the bottom that says, captured in-game, a blend of gameplay, cinematics, and in-engine footage. Shut the frick up. Give me cinematics. Give me gameplay. Have a clear dividing line. Cut the crap. Quit misleading people. It's not done. Listen, this is the real thing. Those trailers are never done with the intention of showing you the product. They're trying to sell you a dream. It's a mirage. That's my frustration with it. Gamers should not be defending that. Just, you've got to stop. We went through this with Fable so many times, and I stuck to my guns, and I said, that is not gameplay. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. A dev said that it was. Yeah, to the degree that the perfect dart footage was real, overly scripted, very carefully crafted sequences, and then when they finally do show us gameplay of Fable, it's like, oh, okay, this doesn't look bad, but it doesn't look anything like what you showed in the trailers. It is in your interest as a gamer to not defend it. When PlayStation pulled that crap 2 years ago at their showcase, and Concord was cinematic, and Fair Games was a cinematic, and Marathon was a cinematic, I called foul. I was like, you're not showing us anything. And look how it turned out for Concord. If they would have had the balls to show their derivative slop gameplay a year before, maybe they would have been spared the embarrassment of the biggest live service flop in history. But instead, you want to play these shrouded games with marketing. Show me the dadgum game. If you want me to buy the game, then show it to me. I actually think Witcher 4 is different. I think Witcher 4 is different, and here's why. That was a tech demo at an Unreal conference for developers. I think we see too much. That was not directed at us. It wasn't. My issue with The Witcher 4 is that was not an Xbox showcase. That was not a PlayStation showcase. That was a State of Unreal event where CD Projekt Red showed up, collaborated with Unreal to say, this is what's capable with the engine. We're implementing the tech in our game, and we want to kind of show you what's possible. And everybody's like, it's really misleading. They made everybody think that was gameplay. And it's like, well, I think we see too much. I don't think that was intended for us. A lot of these conferences were usually only attended by developers and people within the market, people within the industry, and not us. Well, now we see everything. We see every press release. We see every job posting. We see every leak. And so we know so much that we end up being like, well, that's not really gameplay. And it's like, well, they didn't show up at a PlayStation showcase or an Xbox showcase and say that it was. They were demoing the Unreal Engine new tech to developers, and they used Witcher to do it. Should they maybe have had a clearer line so that everybody knew what was going on? Sure. Maybe they should have made it crystal clear. This is not raw gameplay. This is intended to be a demo of what the engine, is capable of now with new technology strides from Unreal. Maybe they could have done that. Because in the aftermath of the event, they basically were like, oh no, that wasn't gameplay, that was a tech demo. We were demoing off the tech. They said running on a standard PS5 at 60 FPS, that might hurt them in the future. Well, but again, if you look at the context, Jake, they're talking to developers. So what they're saying is, you can make it look this good on a standard console in the market right now. Again, I don't think the intention, I always want to think about intention, right? Is the intention of that showcase to mislead gamers? No, I don't think so. It was not some canned BS trailer at a showcase that I've been critical of. I've been critical of it. If PlayStation does it, I've been critical of it. If Xbox does it. And that's not what it was. It wasn't some showcase where they were like trying to trick gamers. It felt more like it was designed to show devs like this engine's kind of cooking, yo, and you can do. I said yo again. All right, we got to stop. I got to shut down for the day. I'm on a 2 yo quota. I didn't mean there's gonna be some disciplinary action, especially now I got to go back to training I'm sorry, everybody. I'm losing it. I'm losing my grip. I'm losing my grip. I really am. It's bad. It's bad. This is not. Golly. I blame the devs for that, yo. Yeah, I think that yo was the devs' fault. Felt that disturbance in the force again. Bro really said, yo, I would like to submit my humble apology. Please don't revoke invites. I didn't get enough sleep last night. Holy frick. Oh, man. It's about 2 o'clock anyways. We got to go to Green Room. Listen, y'all. I'm going to put a link in chat just in case you haven't had a chance to watch it. That will take you to my upload from today. So if you can't come to Green Room, please do me a favor and watch that. It's basically about Helldivers and why I think it's a sign that Xbox is not a threat. Let me set up Green Room and then I'll redirect. This is a really great reason for you to support the channel directly. Consider upgrading to Member Plus or sign up right now for Member Plus. For $6 a month, you get into this extra segment every single day, and eventually, you're not going to be able to run over there to Purple to watch this content. I will very soon be able to bring that door down and put this behind a paywall, as it should be. This is extra additive content, and if you value that and you want more content, we think it's fair for that to be $6 a month. It's an extra segment every day of the week, so it's basically like 20 extra segments a month. So, let me set this up. No, I'm not. I'm not saying your name, and this will be your last day here. I don't interact with accounts like you. You're not here in good faith to have a good time and discuss and be a part of the community. You're just here to be disruptive. You're worried about Intergalactic? I'm not worried at all. I mean, there's no indication of problems. I mean, actually, it's probably better that Druckmann's not on the dadgum TV show, because that was going in a bad way. All right, link in chat is for the Green Room. Click it or ride the redirect. Hey, thanks so much for being a Member Plus or a VIP. This is the end of the day segment that you guys pay for. A little bit of a behind-the-scenes look into how we plan the content, how we scope it out, and how we make our decisions. So thank you so much for supporting the channel directly. If you guys are watching the tail end of the broadcast and you can't come with us, go watch my latest upload, or again, consider supporting the channel directly. That is quite literally how I do this full time. I'm going to end that stream, and I'll change the thumbnail to remove the